Welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and it is Saturday, which means, as usual, it is an AMA. You may ask me anything. I always start with something that I think is interesting, or we can just start the chat with, but I'm more lenient to people who are asking me odder questions, and actually open to more people asking me questions who are not members, which usually I do focus on members when I can. I'm a bit more open for those of you who aren't, so I'm able to get anyone in, even if you can't do the $49 per month, which I hope you can. But if you can't, no worries. This is your day to ask whatever you like, and you're gonna like it. You are. How do I know? That's why you're watching. So do me a favor already before we start. That button, the one, Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. Click it. Why aren't you clicking? There we go. Do so, please. Click that button. It does matter. It's important. My team is always talking to me and telling me things like, Larry, do stuff that's more controversial. You could do race stuff. You can do like gender stuff, like do stuff more controversial. I don't always do controversial stuff. I can be clickbaity. Kim gets mad at me when I do, but I can be clickbaity, but not that much, but I do sometimes. But this one kind of hit me because I've been seeing it pop up a lot recently. It's this idea of Black fatigue. And what I think was special for me wasn't just that there was another race thing. There's tons of race things in our country. People always talk about different things racially all the time. But this was being talked about, Black fatigue by Black people. That's what I thought, okay, now we're going someplace. This could be something that people are thinking about. And as a general rule, if you're not Black and you bring this up, you're a racist. That's how that works, right? You're a bad person. How dare you? You can't do the thing, right? So I figured I'll make it a safe space, and some of you will probably say inappropriate things. I know, but it's fine. We'll have a spot to talk and have something happen. I'll probably use baby talk because it's YouTube. Maybe this one should have been a Rumble exclusive, but I wanted to make it as broad as possible, so I did it on everything. Maybe I will do a racial one on Rumble so people could just be more open. So I will be doing some baby talk because I have to, because it's YouTube. But I was trying to find a video that was kind of popular, and I was kind of talking about more than one side of this. Most of the videos that I found that were about Black fatigue were conservative Black people saying basically, why won't Black people behave? Which is not the only answer. It's an answer, but not even close to the only one. So I wanted to mix it up a bit and have some real conversations. So yes, let me, if I can, go ahead and pop up this one that I think is one of the better ones. People have been using this. I'm not the only one to use this one, and that's why I saw it. So let me pop this up, and we'll talk about it and see what you guys think. All righty. I think you guys can see that, and here we go.
Now to Black fatigue, it has recently been turned into a feeling that some white and Black people have who say they are damn tired of foolishness of some Black people, the claims of racism from sunup to sundown, loud talking, fighting, and the list goes on. Not my list now, keep that in mind. But some people are tired of the complaints and don't give a damn. Here's what one TikToker...
That don't give a damn piece is a critical piece. I spoke about this last year after the election. And what did I say? This was the election that showed that Americans are tired of being scolded. So this don't give a damn piece is an important part of this.
User had to say about it.
Not racist, and I know y'all been told this is racist, but it's not. It's not racist to call Black people out for their behavior and what they're doing to society at this moment. I'm glad people are noticing this because it's been so many years and it's finally catching up to y'all.
The issue here becomes, right? The issue here becomes what does bother me is, at least when the first guy was talking about it, he was open. He said, look, what some Black people do, blah, blah. When it becomes a Black thing, like what Black people are doing, that is when people start getting upset, right? Because no one wants to be, well, I'm the bad guy, right? I'm not the bad one, right? I'm not. So when you start, she's gonna trigger people. She may want to. That may be her goal. I don't know this creator. Her goal may be to trigger. But when you go, what Black people are doing, you automatically make people upset. That's a guarantee, right?
I've been trying to tell y'all that white people are tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all too, but everybody, the world is getting sick of y'all and y'all's.
And she's saying y'all. Another interesting concept. Y'all. Right?
I'm so glad this day is here. I've been trying to get out there that you people need help. It's me, but me and other Black conservatives. We've been trying to warn society that this is what it's going to.
And this is an actual problem, right? And what I mean by this, what most people don't know, and if you're Black, you know this, there's a lot of Black conservatives, but that's not the image that's there. And the problem with that is she believes that too. Why do I say that? Because she's saying, Black people, y'all. No, sweetheart, it's you too. But you see yourself, because you're a Black conservatives, as not part of the Black community. That's a problem for everyone. For those of you who don't know, the percentage of Black people who are conservative, it's almost the same as white people. The difference is Democrat, Republican parties. Now, I know this. The Sharpe family there's almost no Sharpe family here in New York. There's a bunch in Florida. My family in Florida, they're conservative. They are churchgoers. They own guns. They all have job work. They all have job. I mean, they are conservative. Vote Democrat. Yes. And if you're Black or have Black people in your world, you know what I'm talking about. People who, if you talk to them and ask their questions about them, they're more conservative than I am, and they vote Democrat and I don't, right? And they're more conservative than I am. I'm just saying this is a problem in the Black community and in the country as a whole. We shouldn't, sadly we do, connect Black people with by default Democratic Party. Sadly, that is true, and it should not be. And this goes to Black people, the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party too, and all the parties. We should be opening up more people to our parties to the best of our ability, and we're not doing it. So she now, in her own mind, says like the Black community is separate from her because she's conservative. Utterly not true. And it's a problem, right? Sadly, she's not alone in that.
Come to when y'all keep coddling Black people.
She means coddling.
All righty. Are her feelings valid? Joining us to talk about it, Dr. Angela Jones, political analyst, Angela Box, activist, Eugene Howard.
And you might say, hold on, I'm going to put this up. Why would Black conservatives vote Democratic? Because they've been told for decades that all Republicans are racist. They've been told that for decades. Clearly, that's not true, but it doesn't matter. If you're told that for decades, you stop believing it. And I've asked them, and I say that, I can't, more Republican are racist. Yes, that's what they believe. Now, I'm going to be very clear. Are there racist Republicans? Absolutely. I don't want to have the old police come get me and go, oh, yeah, of course there are. But to say that all Republicans are racist is silly. It's not true. It's not a thing. But they're told that and they believe it. So, yes.
Filmmaker Sean Welling and conservative M. Williams. We want to thank you all for joining us here on The Fact.
Her title was conservative.
Define.
Did you hear that? Her title was conservative. That was her title.
What Black fatigue is supposed to be, Dr. Jones.
Black fatigue is supposed to be just and I'm trying to make it as short as possible. Basically, society is saying that they're tired of how.
She's a certified sex therapist and psychotherapist. Okay.
Black people are blaming things that have happened to us historically in the past on what's happening today. And they are also now adding different things that they have seen in society to that behavior as well. As she said, like loud mouthing.
Okay, that's true, but not a little bit off. Black fatigue originally was the concept that Black people are tired because being Black in America is so hard because there's constant racism, right? It's always on us Black people. So we have Black fatigue. That was the original meaning of it. And it didn't take on because for some people that may be true, but for the vast majority of Black people, that's just not true. But did it feel good and sound good when first said? Yeah, it was nice rhetoric. It just wasn't true, right? The majority, I want to be very clear again. I don't want the old police to come after me. Absolutely There is racism in America, just so they don't get mad at me. It's true, and you can find pieces of it. Of course you can. But to think that it is so strong that it holds on and pushes on every Black person in America every day is fantasy. That's not true. But of course, people are offended by racism. Of course they are. I want to be clear. But there's no way that it sits on every Black person every day and they have fatigue and they're tired of all the racist stuff that's come on. That's just not accurate, right? Not accurate. But it did feel good, right, to say these things. Nice warm fuzzies. Excuse the blame other people. But it wasn't true. Now that's been turned to mean tired of what they call, this is the ratchet behavior, right? That's what they call. So yes.
Or maybe, using certain words or certain behaviors in public. So that's basically the definition in a short sense.
Do we get anywhere with that, with this conversation?
No, this absolutely
Okay, good night, folks.
Now that's her problem, right? The problem that I have with her is she just says, no, it's not true. We need to be having more and more and more conversations about this without just shutting people down. And the problem is once you shut people down, it reinforces whatever their negative stereotype is. You have to have more and more conversations. And she's a psychotherapist. And her answer is, shut up. That's a bad thing, right? But why? Because emotionally, that's where she goes. And I get it. Like I understand where her emotions are. But if you're a professional, you have to put those away and go, okay, I get it. Emotionally, I feel it, but it's not helpful. It's not going to work. We got to walk through this.
I mean, the thing is, it's an absolutely pointless conversation. It's like, okay, so now what? Thank you for letting us know that there's a new fancy word of you saying that you're tired of Black people.
It's not a fancy word of you saying that. This is where she's wrong. And the reason why I say she's wrong is even Black people are saying it. I'm going to show you that in a minute too, right? And there's a woman here who talks about it. Black people are saying it too. So it isn't that you're tired of Black people. No, Black people too are saying it. Now there's some distinctions here too I want to bring up here.
And you put it on the internet and now people are co-signing on it, including with the way the environment is already. But it's okay. You put a nice new name to it and now you feel like it's okay to say. And it's not going to do anything for any.
I know it's going to do something and she's obviously wrong. Why? It's all over the internet. I'm talking about it. She's on a panel talking about it. People are talking about it. It's going to do a lot. And it's going to make some people look stupid, but hopefully have some real good conversations.
To now pander this term around, to pass it on in the internet and put it in people's mouth and make people feel encouraged to say, I have Black fatigue. But
okay, I get that she may not like the term, and that's up to her. I can understand that. I'm not mad at her for not liking the term, but there has to be a point to where people go, I'm done. I'm done. Right. And I bring up the same thing. And Mike Voss is here. He remembers it. The biggest thing happened in New York, Daniel Penny. When Daniel Penny walked, that was the canary in the coal mine. For those of you who remember, Daniel Penny was the guy who choked out the Black performer, guy who also was an addict. Was he addict? Or no, mental illness, not addict. He had a mental illness and choked him and killed him on a subway. Now, I've been very clear on this. This is the problem that she has, that people have. They take one side or the other. They say Daniel Penny was basically the greatest guy in the world, and he murdered this guy for no reason. That's option one. Other side is this guy was a murderer and he deserved to die because he was trying to kill people. The reality of it is neither one of those people should have been punished. That's true. Daniel Penny should not have gone to jail. I'm glad he did not. And Jordan Neely shouldn't have died. He shouldn't have been killed either. Both are true. And that's the thing. People aren't talking about the real thing, which is a serious problem. And she's ignoring it too.
When we're all tired, when I'm saying, we're all tired of something and somewhere, there's always something.
No. Everyone's tired of these things. And here's the problem with this also. It's actually not Black fatigue. It actually isn't. I mean, it's called that. And I get her not liking the name. I don't like the name either. But what is it actually? It's out of three things. It's actually ghetto culture fatigue. That's true. There is a ghetto culture fatigue. Ghetto culture was the coolest thing in the 90s. It was the coolest thing in the 90s. Not as cool anymore. It just isn't as cool anymore. So we're tired of ghetto culture. That fatigue, true. Number two, we're also tired of a lack of respect. The lack of respect is what we're all so tired of. And this is all Americans, lack of respect. And sadly, that's often seen in Black community when it comes to social media. It's seen that way, right? Ghetto culture is by default Black community. Lack of respect is also seen. And the last thing is we're tired of being scolded. And this is everybody. We're tired of every time I say, I don't like this, I'm the bad guy because I said I don't like this. I'm standing up for what I feel. I'm the bad guy for standing up for what I feel. This actually isn't Black fatigue. I get why they call it that. I'm with her on that one. I don't like they call it that. I agree, because it isn't actually Black fatigue. And I'll show you why in a minute. It's actually ghetto culture fatigue, lack of respect fatigue, and scolding fatigue. That's what it actually is, wrapped up, sadly, in Black fatigue.
Mm-hmm. So this is not actually going to help anyone psychologically, mentally, emotionally. It's only going to create.
She is a terrible psychotherapist. I hope she's a good sex therapist, because she's clearly a bad
more divisiveness, more anger, and more hate in society.
And when we see a lot of people, especially Black people, joining that chorus, saying that I'm tired of Black people too.
Yep.
What will that do?
It's not going to do anything, because here's the thing, that Black person or the Black people that are on the internet saying that can go somewhere and they're going to be already stereotyped into the group that they're trying to separate them.
Now, this is insanely dumb what she just says. And she's dumb not because she's dumb. I don't think she's dumb. She's dumb because her ideology has blinded her. Her ideology has removed her brain from thinking clearly. That's the reason why. So if she goes, it doesn't matter because they're already stereotyped. If that's true, then fatigue is real. If that's true, right? So then she's wrong if that's true. The other thing is, wait a minute. If they're all fatigued, then they're hanging around people who aren't also Black people. So they already have non-Black people friends. This is a cultural issue. And this is why I don't like it being called Black. I'd rather it be called ghetto fatigue. I would prefer that if I had to pick, right? I mean, that's not great, but I would take ghetto fatigue instead. Because at least ghetto fatigue, there are some white people in the ghetto, and there are lots of Black people not in the ghetto. So I would prefer ghetto fatigue, but it is what it is. I'm not going to change it because of me. But yeah, my point being, those Black people, they aren't in the ghetto
themselves from just because they're Black. You actually have to be around people to see their behavior. You have to witness their behavior to actually understand who they are.
And these are Black people who have Black family members. There's an entire, if you guys care, there's an entire trope. There's an entire meme regarding between ghetto cousins and suburban cousins. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And it's the difference between the two. Two Black kids, groups of kids, one, and they're together for the family reunion, and some in the suburbs and some from the ghetto. Look it up if you care.
But she could sit there and be in a crowd of a room of Black people, and guess who all she's going to be included in that group as well. She's not doing anything that is going to help her or her race at this time.
All right, Angela, let's hear from you. Your thoughts about this Angela. Black fatigue.
I feel bad for her because they always have like the token white person who has to do the thing. And then the white person always looks racist. They don't have a choice because this is the way our culture works. And I feel bad. Like that person, like, okay, I got to be a racist this time. Yeah, that's how that works.
Well, with all due respect to Angela, number one, I really disagree with this. It is a completely behavior-based
political
issue. And when white...
But it's not a behavior-based issue. She's wrong. It's not. And what I mean by that, when white people do the same things, whatever that is, it's not considered Black fatigue. So it's not a behavioral thing. She's wrong. It's a cultural thing. That's what it actually is.
People, Black people, Hispanic people are saying we have Black fatigue because of the behavior of some Black people. We've all seen it. We all know what it is. It's everywhere. And, you know,
what you'll see, for those of you who know this world, what you'll see often is in anything like any videos or any memes or such, whenever it is Black people doing bad things, you'll see someone type in, well. That means look Black people again. That's what that means. That's what that means.
The issue is way more insidious than people realize. And I talk about how a lot of these things come back to what the Democrat Party has done to the Black community.
That's true.
Starting with the Great Society of Lyndon B. Johnson, who he famously said, I'm going to have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
True.
When Democrats said you don't need fathers in the home, you can be on welfare and have as many babies as you want. And oh, by the way, we're going to destroy public schools and we're going to make sure that behavior standards are seen as racist.
Yep.
So the out of control behavior that we've seen in the classrooms,
yep,
in society, all over, is part and parcel of what the Democrat Party has done to the Black community.
All right,
She's not
Eugene,
wrong.
let's hear from you before we have to take a break.
Man, why are we all? What does the Democrat Party have to do with Black?
Everything.
Hold on.
Oh, now this guy is the reason why people are mad. This guy gives me Black fatigue. He's like, why has it got to be Democratic Party? Immediately. It's obvious it is. Like, it's so screaming obvious, and he has to play that game.
Okay, first of all, I think he asked Eugene. So last time I checked, I'm Eugene on stage. So
now he's
the
being a
Democratic
jerk?
Party has nothing to do with Black fatigue. What the original term from the actual Black community of Black fatigue was after every other community decided to vote. Since you want to talk politics, Donald Trump, then Black folks said, we're going to sit this one out.
Oh, so now he says, to be clear, he tells her what's Democratic Party, then he brings up Orange Man Bad. He brings it up. And it's not true. What he's saying is not true. I told you what Black actually was. It wasn't about Donald Trump at all. That's not true. So he's like, oh, you people put in Donald Trump, the racist. He didn't say that, but that's what he meant. You all know he did. And then, yeah, this guy's the problem. This guy's the problem. The first woman is actually at least trying to have a conversation. She's failing, but she's actually just talking about it at least. The second woman is trying to, but she's got it wrong too. This guy's just being a jerk.
We're going to let this thing burn down and we're going to go have a good time because we're tired. We have been struggling. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents.
Dude, you got 9 gold chains on. Stop telling me about how you struggling. You got more crosses on than the Pope, and you're going to sit here and tell me how you struggle? Shut up. Stop. Just stop. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. Did his grandparents suffer? Yes. True. Mine did too, right? I'm Black on my father's side. Mine did too, right? I am an American descendant of slaves. I assume he is also. That's my assumption by his conversation. So yes, I get that, right? But that doesn't mean we are. Doesn't mean I am. Doesn't mean he is. Now, can I acknowledge that? Sure. And there are times and places where you can acknowledge that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem acknowledging that there are still people who are alive today who remember this stuff. I don't have a problem acknowledging that. And even showing respect to them and saying, look, these guys were marching in the 60s, whatever. Yeah, 100%. But it doesn't mean that homeboy here is in trouble or I'm in trouble. He wearing more gold than anybody I've seen. He's in trouble.
Our great-grandparents have been fighting this same fight. So if you got...
Okay, not the same. Your great-great-great-great-parents didn't have 9 gold chains on. They were in chains. So stop this. Stop trying to take...
guys want to turn around. You know, he said the N-word. Why don't you guys feel so comfortable? Just say it. Just go ahead and say the N-word.
And there's where it goes. You don't like what someone's saying, so just call them an ist. Just call them an ist. Say the N-word, say it. That's what you want to do. That's what you want. Nope. No one said that. No one said that. No one said, I just want to say the N-word. Why do people think that's the biggest issue?
If it's so okay, if you're so fatigued, if you don't want to recognize the civil rights plight, go ahead and say the N-word.
Who said you don't want to recognize it? He's utter straw man. Nobody said this. He's just immediately going to defense in this. You don't want to recognize the civil rights plight. Who said that? I'm saying I recognize it. I'm not fighting it now. Neither is he. Did his grandpa, grandma? Maybe. No shade to your grandparents who maybe fought that fight. My father grew up in the 30s and 40s. He fought that fight, right? That's true. He fought that fight. This guy didn't.
No one's stopping you. It's a free country,
not on
right?
this show, Eugene.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
But that's my point. It's a lot of things that they want to use code words, whether it's DEI, whether it's Black fatigue. They just want to be able to say the N-word without being able to say.
So imagine that. Imagine that you think that the average American They are so concerned and focused on saying the N-word that they will make this up. So some guy, construction worker, maybe works in a store, whatever the case may be, and he says, man, I wake up in the morning, I don't care about my family feeding them. That's not important. I don't care about paying my bills. I don't care about that. I don't care about making my boss happy so I keep my job. Don't care about that. I don't care about having my hobbies and friends. Don't care about that. You know what I care about? Saying the N-word. How do I get around that? Let me make up something. Like he thinks people think that. I want to be clear again. Are there racists in America? Of course there are. And I'm sure there are people who can't. The people who are racist, they just say it in front of their friends, in front of you. I've met them. I know these people. They've called me it directly and other names. The people who are actually racist don't need your permission to use the N-word. They just use it. So if you know someone who's actually racist, to be clear, and Mike was in the Marine Corps the same time I was. For those of you who don't know, the Marine Corps is the most conservative of all the services. I had more than one guy in my units who were literally card-carrying members of the Triple K. I'm not joking, like had it in their wallet. They were card-carrying members. Yeah, they didn't require permission. So, yeah.
The N-word.
So do you not find certain behaviors objectionable? Or you think it's cool?
Listen, I live in a real community. I see a whole bunch of unruly white folks, Hispanic folks. So it's not just the black.
It's just distraction. It's just distraction. He's just distraction. See, everyone's the same. That's it.
We always want to emphasize on black when it's negative.
All right, we'll take a break there. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue our discussion after the break. Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We continue our discussion on black fatigue tonight.
He said uncensored, but wouldn't let him say the N-word. It's kind of censored.
The feeling involves the stress that some black people deal with when it comes to constant exposure to racism. But there are people on both sides and inside and outside the black community who say they are tired of hearing.
Thomas says, didn't know they make cards that have cute logo. They do. Yes. Yes. And they call themselves the Knights. So that's part of it. Yes, they do have cute logos. That's a real thing. Yes.
About it. Our guests are back here on The Factor. Emenderlin, let's begin with you. As a conservative, your thoughts about black.
Her title is conservative.
Fatigue.
Well, whether you like black fatigue as a name or not, it's the truth. Like, we're tired of the victimhood mentality, the trauma identification, the need for external,
Agreed. I don't like the name. I do. I don't like the name. So, but to her point's valid. Doesn't mean it's not true. I would prefer. Yes. Ryan says, I knew one dude in the Marines that also had a card with the Triple K organization. Yes. I laughed at him though. Yeah, but it's true. See, Ryan didn't know that. I just said that, and that's a thing. Those guys, they don't care about his permission. If he goes into their town with his gold chains on, the people who are actually the ists in the world will show him. I have met them. I've met more than once Darryl Davis, who's a hero of mine. Those of you know who he is. He actually went and met with people who are from the Triple K. And he turns them by having conversations, not by yelling at them, not by calling, not by saying the N-word. Yeah, he actually has a conversation with them to turn them. That guy's a saint. That guy is a saint. Yes.
Agreement. That's ridiculous. That's terrible for the black community right now. That's terrible for the children growing up. I mean.
Now, she has an exception. And why does she feel the way she feels so openly? It's a common thing you're going to find out. So many black people who are conservatives like this, who speak like this, it's because they're actually immigrants or children of immigrants.
There's so many broken homes, and I think that's the core foundation. Number one, I believe the core foundation is that the parents failed to not only unify the home, but also failed to put true identity in God in the children. So if you don't have identity in God, you don't have identity at all. That's number one.
Do you at all see the black community as a lost cause or just...
And that's how it sounds, because again, the problem with so many black conservatives is many of them, not all of them, and there's a reason why I'm going to cover that too. Many of them separate themselves from the black community as a whole, and that is an issue.
Some individuals, What?
I don't believe the Black community is a lost cause at all. I just believe that we need to stop as a whole with all of this complaining. We need to move past the past and, you know, become better. You know, as an American, my parents were actually Nigerian. They came
Bingo.
here in the 80s and they grew up
Yep.
here. They had me and my.
Now, why does that matter? Some of you might, for those of you who don't know, Mike brought up the idea that the Black community isn't a monolith. It isn't. It's true. It's very different. And people often think, well, the Black community is. And sadly, even Black people think that, right? So lots of people think the Black community is a monolith, right? Even though it clearly isn't. One of the pieces are you an American descendant of slaves, also known as a freedman or foundational Black American, all different names for the same type of people who your ancestors were American slaves. Hers were not. You might go, Larry, why does that matter? Because that is cultural. Her culture, people who come from places like Nigeria and such are self-selecting. They tend to be people who can afford to leave, who have enough cash with an entrepreneurial, adventurous spirit. That's why you come here. Well, the slaves didn't come here that way. They just got grabbed and brought over here. So there's a big self-selection process. So people who are immigrants, people from Jamaica, people from Nigeria, South Africa, those people, most of them, they are self-selecting and they're going to be more entrepreneurial, often have more money, often have more education. They think differently, so they're going to raise children differently also. People who are born and raised here, meaning their family came from slaves, and the slaves, they tend to think differently, different culturally, right? Why does that matter that way? Because if you look at Black culture in America, American Black culture, it is a poor culture. White culture, whatever that is, isn't a poor culture. It is a culture of wherever their family came from, right? The problem is Black Americans don't have that. The difference between Black Americans and other immigrants is that Black Americans were their culture was taken away from them. They don't know where they came from. They know it's just Africa, right? Their language is taken away from them. Their culture was taken away from them. Their name was taken away from them. Their religion was taken away from them. They don't have any of that culture. So what did their culture become? The Black and American culture became post-slavery culture, which was poor second-class citizen culture. And that's what the culture of many Black Americans are. That isn't their fault, right? Black Americans didn't get a chance to integrate. That wasn't the thing. So am I saying now we all have to be victims? No, I'm saying acknowledge the aspects the first guy said. Yes, grandparents did fight the good fight. Acknowledge it, respect it. It doesn't mean that today we're dealing with that, but it also doesn't mean be, as she is being, flippant and like it doesn't matter. It does matter. Just acknowledge it.
Brothers, and we're all successful, and not one complaint through our entire childhood. They said
this is the old thing that I hear all the time. Well, I did it. That doesn't mean everyone can. Then I might as well say, well, why is somebody a billionaire? Bill Gates did it. That's not a valid argument. I get her concerns, not a valid argument.
Work for what you need, work for what you're gonna get, and you will get it.
Yeah, people are talking about Jazz, talking about African culture, Afro Caribbeans were slaves. Yes, but they had their own country. Yes, but they had their own country. There's a difference, right? The Jamaica has had its own country. They have a homeland. If you are Jamaican, if you are Haitian, if you are, and you pick any of the small islands from Grenada, whatever, right? Wherever you're from, you have a home country. Black Americans don't have a home country. They are literally the only demographic on the entire planet with no home country. The only one. Jews didn't have one. Now they have Israel. No one else on the planet has no homeland, right? Even Native Americans who got completely trashed. They got reservations. They got something. Still terrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's good. It's not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying that. But they have something, and they still have their culture. They still know who they are. And many of the Afro-Caribbean slaves created their own culture locally with hierarchies and everything. Didn't really have that in Black America at the time. So there is a difference. That's what I'm saying. I hope that makes sense at least, Jazz. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying with that.
God placed talent in all of us, Black, white, whatever you may, call yourself. But God placed, all of these great things within us. Why should I now say, oh, well, a white person thinks this of me, or there's racism here?
She's right.
I don't think about that. I don't wake up every morning and have racism and all of these negative things on
She's
my
right.
mind. I'm moving.
And she shouldn't. Thomas says slavery was fairly widespread in every continent. There's few people who can say for a fact none of the ancestors were enslaved. I'm glad we're having this conversation. There is a difference. And I want to be clear. The reason why I like having this conversation is just because I acknowledge a difference doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're all victims. Those aren't the same thing. We can acknowledge both. The difference is not the entire world. What was not widespread was chattel slavery. That was American. What is the difference? If you were a slave in ancient Rome, in Egypt, and wherever, if you were a slave anyplace else in the world, in Europe, in Asia, even in Africa, if you were a slave someplace else, you still were your culture. When the Jews were slaves to Egyptians, they were still Jews, right? When a Samaritan was a Roman slave, he was still Samaritan, right? You retained your culture even though you were a slave. Not just that. Why were you a slave? You weren't a slave because you were Jewish or because you were Samaritan. That wasn't why you were a slave. You were a slave because you lost a war, you yelled the king, you committed a crime. There was some reason, some action that either you or your people failed to do or did that caused you to be a slave. You weren't a slave because you were Samaritan. Let's say Samaritan, because you were Samaritan. That wasn't the reason why you were a slave. In America, you were a slave because you were Black. That was the reason. Not because you did something wrong, not because you lost a battle or made the king angry, because you were Black. That was the first. Second, if you were Samaritan and you were a slave in the Roman Empire, or Jewish and you were a slave in the Egyptian Empire, your children weren't slaves. Your children weren't slaves. They weren't. They didn't do anything wrong. Your children were free. In fact, you could actually have that, right? You could actually have a child with someone who wasn't free, and the child could buy your freedom. That was the thing. Easily could be done. That wasn't true in America. That made it different. Again, you're right. Slavery is widespread. Slavery's in the Bible. Slavery's everywhere. All I'm saying is there was a difference. That was difference, right? You didn't lose your culture being a slave except here. And you weren't a chattel slavery. That's not here. So yes, absolutely. So anyway, that's all that difference. That's all. So I'm going to say there is a difference. That's all.
And I moved past that.
All right, Sean, let's hear from you. Your thoughts about this conversation and the term that we now hear.
And again, I was so taken by your speech. The term we're talking about is Black. What was it again?
Fatigue.
Okay. So on Black fatigue, and come from somebody, and I think I agree with her tremendously, having a school for 3 decades, it was the first hip-hop dance school in the country. It's a cancer to tell a young kid that they're oppressed, that they're less than, and the world's against them. Right from the beginning, you're saying.
This idea of victim culture is not a good thing. It is nothing but harmful. You can acknowledge the past without having to hammer the present. It's not required, right? It's not required. And this is what we've been doing so badly here. Is we either don't acknowledge about like, which doesn't matter, we dismiss it, or whatever. Everybody was a slave. Who cares? That's option one. Or, oh my God, my grandmother was a slave, so therefore you owe me everything. Neither of these two are the right answer. We can acknowledge what happened, right? And still not think everyone has to be a victim. We can do both, can't we? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the crazy one, and we can only do one or the other. I hope I'm not, but maybe. I'm looking over at Rumble. P says, hey, Sharpies, Google Owl Pro is for 30. Oh, okay. Okay. Learning about AI. AI Pro. Okay, got it. All right. This is not about that. Sorry. All right. Let me get through this real fast. You guys have other questions. I want to make sure I'm doing all of it. I thought it was interesting to talk about. I thought it was interesting. So, yes, absolutely. Fran says, this dude just said there were never slaves based on ideological differences. Wow. Is that me? I didn't say that. I hope it wasn't me. Wow. I hope for honest. Was you talking about someone on the show or me? I've never said that. If you think I said that, you either misheard me or you made something up. I've never said that. I literally said you could just do something against the king and you could become a slave, which would be an ideological difference. Sure, of course you could be, but it was an action. It was an action that you did. You did something or acted somewhere, or your people did something and you paid for all of your people, right? Your people defended something and then they all pay the price, right? That kind of thing. But yeah. Not because of race. Race wasn't an issue that you were a slave based on race, except here. That was different. So, and it is an honest conversation, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. I hope it's not me you're talking about. Maybe you are. You get to have your opinion.
Standard by which they have to overcome something, when really you need to put God in them and tell them how great things are for them.
Amen.
So I was never around black people to complain. All the actors and dancers I was around, they had a sense of purpose. They were dynamic. And
this
they
is
never
critical.
complained. So
this is the piece that what we have to do, right? And this is a part that I think the first woman, the woman from a Nigerian ancestry, is totally correct. We do have to make sure that people have purpose, right? The only way I would say would be great if you were to dwell on your grandparents being slaves or something, would be if you took pride in that and saying, look at where I've gone, or look at where I can do now, recognize that my great grandmother was a slave or something. I could see value in that. I could see someone pulling themselves up and having some strength or like that. I know a lot of Jewish people, a lot of big Jewish community here. A lot of people try to draw strength from their grandparents or parents surviving the Holocaust or something. So they try to draw some strength from the tragedy. That's fine if that helps you. I think that's a wonderful thing. If you could, right? I think you could do that. Yeah. So Jazz says, would you say that Black Americans developed to create their own culture? I think yes. Black American culture, so they have a culture now. Yes, I think that's true. And yes, I think that's absolutely true, Jazz. And there are some people, I'm going to go to the next page, who are angry about that. I think yes, and there are some Black people who are not happy about that. They don't like the culture that has been created. There are some people who really don't like it at all. So I think yes, and there are people who don't like this at all. Yeah, let me go past this guy. He's talking about dancing and stuff. Let me go past him. So this is the doctor
of the woman that called a 5-year-old autistic kid the N-word. Mm-hmm. And then she raised $700,000.
Now, the reason why I bring that one up is I asked you earlier to remember the idea that I said, this actually isn't Black fatigue. It's the phrase used, but it's actual ghetto culture fatigue. That's true. Lack of respect fatigue, but also tired of being scolded fatigue. So the woman who called the little kid the N-word clearly has some issues. Clearly she does. But why do people get behind her? She would say, well, because America is all racist. It's not true, but that's what she would say. She would say, oh, because all the racists. Did racists give her money? I'm sure some did. Because those people exist, so I'm sure some did. But in reality, people just said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being scolded, another person being scolded, another person being attacked, another one doing it. You know what? I'm going to back her because I'm just tired. This is a backlash.
By a Christian organization, and I am Christian as well, so I just want to put that out there as well. And she raised $300,000 from another organization. I don't know if she actually got that money, but then this video from the person who originally started putting this on TikTok came out in reference to that.
Missy says it. Tired of being scolded fatigue for real. Yes, a lot of Americans are, and they just don't care. They just don't care. They're tired of being scolded. Tired of being called bad, tired of being called
tired of being called I am a first-generation American as well, and I was taught a certain way as well. But what we cannot ignore is the things that have set us back as a community. The reason we are not where we're supposed to be is because we are still only
Okay, so she made an error. She started out right. And I'll say again, there is nothing wrong with anybody looking back at the history of their culture, of their people, and talking about how hard it was for them. When Italians first came to America, all Catholics, when they first came to America, it was very tough for them, right? Irish, Italians, very tough. They were second-class citizens. There's nothing wrong with being proud of that, saying, look, it was tough when I got here. My grandma, my dad, whatever came, and it was tough. So I'm proud of, where I've become or where my people have become or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're someone, and I hope you're not, who just sits here and goes, well, my Irish ancestors were struggled and had a lot of prejudice against them, so therefore you guys all owe me and everything, I'm a victim. Same problem, right? So again, we can acknowledge that Black people have come from a terrible spot. I think she's right to acknowledge that. We can do that. Let's do that. And let's be proud of where many Black people are now, and let's keep moving. We can do both. You can do both. And she does one and then not the other.
a couple of decades away from what we have been oppressed from and the things that we have gone
Constantly
from.
looking at the past.
My
Hey,
grandma,
wait, real quick, let
I'm
Dr.
talking.
Jones talk.
Okay. And so my grandmother, who just passed away last week, was there for the civil rights, was there for everything like that.
And this is my problem. She now is a PhD, terrible therapist, hopefully a good sex therapist, but a terrible psychotherapist. She's now making the big dollars, went to college. Why isn't she doubly proud? My grandma had to be on the line and to fight in the 60s. Well done. And I'm not being flippant. Well done. And you're now here. Why are you still mad? I don't mean to be flippant. It's just, why are you still mad? Right? You should be like, see, look at how awesome I've done compared to my grandma. That will be amazing. This is what I'm talking about. You can do both. This can be a real conversation. It doesn't have to be they're bad, I'm bad, you're bad. It doesn't have to be that at all. Liberty Lady, thank you for the $5. Help get Larry to 500 followers on his Rumble. Even if you watch somewhere else, rumble.com/user/Larry Sharpe. Also, spank that like button and the bell. Yes, I'm about 450 viewers on Rumble. If you're going to pop over there, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that. That does help tremendously. Also, of course, if you like what we're talking about, click the button known as like. Do it. Click that button. It is important. If you haven't shared this or reposted it, please do so. Follow me on all the cool things on Facebook, X, and Rumble. Please do so. Remember, if you want to, you can always super chat me or rant me. It goes right to the front, like you just saw Liberty Ladies. Hers went right to the front. And you can also be a member if you want to on YouTube at 49. Click join, or on Rumble, click subscribe during the live. The more subscribers we have, the less time I have to do regular work, and the more time I can do this. Yes, but no matter what, click that button known as like. Absolutely. Okay. All righty here. Let me keep going here if I could. I think she's about done.
I was there to see all of those things as well.
Yes.
It cannot be ignored that these things are still oppressing our community.
All right. There's where she goes wrong. I'm going to stop at her at this point because I'm just done talking about it. My point being, you can still acknowledge all the things and be proud of all the things. And if you had a grandma or a granddad who was fighting the good fight in the 60s or the 40s or 50s, good for you. Be proud. But that doesn't, if for her to say the stuff they're still getting us literally destroys her. It makes her grandma's fight useless. You disrespect your grandma when you don't say, look at where I am now. Thank you, grandma. That's the problem. What she should be saying is, thank you, grandma. You went through a whole bunch of shit that I didn't have to go through. Thank you for that. And I am glad that I'm here. Thank you, grandma. She's not. What she says is, and we're still getting crushed by the same stuff. Stop. You're a PhD. Stop. You're not. That is bullshit. It's utter garbage. She's just being self-righteous. It's just not true. You can do both. Anyway, Phil says, before the 1970s, there was a different culture. Modern ghetto culture seems more recent. There was a more positive version of education and culture. True. I think it is true. The Black community has always had a black market culture. I think that's true. Always has had a black market culture, even back in the 20s, 10s. And most of that was because the government wouldn't allow, right? Government wouldn't allow many black families to do things. And again, glory to what is today. Most people don't know that literally black families could not get licenses for certain types of jobs. So they had to go underground, right? Literally black families could not own houses in government areas because there were federal guidelines that pushed them out. That was a true thing. That was true. Again, not true anymore, but that was true. So her grandma did have to go through that stuff. That's true. The culture began to change heavily in about the 80s, give or take. Around the 80s is when it began to change. And it began actually for several reasons. One of them was the war on drugs. The war on drugs destroyed the black community. It just ripped it to shreds. And that was one of the biggest reasons, right? The war on poverty also did. The war on poverty also hurt, but the war on drugs hurt the most. without the war on drugs, there's no gangsta part when it comes to the black as a mainstream. There were always gangsters in the black community. There's gangsters in every community, right? There were always gangsters, but that wasn't mainstream until the war on drugs. That made the gangster part of the black community the norm. So I hope that answers your question at least. So anyway, I hope that was interesting. I thought you guys liked that. I'll give you one other small chunk. As you saw, one woman who's bothered. This piece, this is Anton, and he brings this up. Oh, hold on, I got a couple things I got to grab real fast if I can. Looking over on Rumble. Joel gives a subscription. Thank you, Joel. Peace Logic gives a subscription. Thank you, guys. If you're on Rumble, there are 2 free subscriptions for you to grab. Please do that. Grab them if you would. I'd appreciate that if you can. That'd be amazing. I do appreciate that. If you can go, that would be awesome. All righty, let me do this next one if I could. And this will be just a couple seconds to show you what I mean here. All righty.
Give me hello. Like, I don't know if it's just because I'm in a DMV and it's predominantly us.
You will often hear, for those who don't know black community, that they will always show you the side of the hand, the outside of the hand, and either point to it or show it, meaning people of skin. There's a counter joke calling white people of the palm versus the opposite. It's if you know, you know, it's an inside joke. But yes, so black people often will do this or do this and we'll show. And if to say white people, it's people of the palm. I know it's kind of weird, but that's a thing. In any case, so she's talking about this, about being in government. And the reality of it is there are a lot of black women by percentage in government, a lot. I think it's something like 16% of the government workers, local, state, and local are like black women. And they're like 6% of the population. So yes. Kim says people at the palm. That's funny. It's true. It's a little inside joke. It is. So yes.
But being around us is so exhausting. It's so exhausting. Like, we could try to sugarcoat it. We could try to play it down as much as we want. Because I spend a lot of time around other races.
Now, the reason why I bring her up and him up is only for one reason. This is them just saying, we have a problem and we want to fix it. This is the best way we can begin to fix it. By having real conversations about it. It's the best way.
Like, majority of my time is spent with other races. When I have to go around us, do business with us, just be around us, I always have to take a couple deep breaths. Driver seat belt. I always have to take a couple deep breaths. Like, I cannot stress it enough. Black people, go heal. Go heal.
And that's her way of dealing with it, is saying, go heal. She's saying black people are broken and and here's the issue. Are all black people broken? Of course not. But again, she is separating herself, right? She's separating herself from this. It's not what this I feel may be the wrong answer, if that makes any sense. I would like us to talk about it.
Go somewhere, sit your ass down, and go heal. Put yourself in a better environment so you could be a better human being. My favorite thing to do with myself is look in the mirror, and I think that we focus on other races so much that we forget that we...
Now, this guy's agreeing with her, and this guy gets tons of views. So there are a lot of people who agree with what he
need
is
to look at
ourselves.
The black community has so much work to do.
And that's the problem. The black community. What I mean by that? Black people are not a monolith. They're not. But the assumption is the ghetto is the black community. And he's going to bring this up in a second. That's the thought process. Do white people assume the trailer park is white community? Do white people assume that? Does every Hispanic person think a Mexican barrio is the Hispanic community? I would argue no, right? Does every Asian person think New York's Chinatown is the Asian community? No. But in America, we've decided, and that's a decision we've made that we cannot make, but we've made that the ghetto is, or now it's called the hood. When I was a kid, I'm old. When I was a kid, it was called the hood. I mean, it was called the ghetto. Now it's called the hood. Whatever. That the hood is by default the black community. But is it?
Like, it is truly, truly, truly exhausting.
Jazz says it perfectly. Thank you for this, Jazz. The world sees black people as ghetto community. Yes. And sadly, Jazz, too many of us do too. Right? Too many of us do also. I'm going to add that piece. You're correct. And
dealing with us majority of the time.
And she's 100% right. It's a couple different ways to solve for that. Of course, we have to take personal responsibility individually, right? But the other part that you got to understand is that every single person and every single culture and every single race, they separate themselves from the degenerates. And they don't always rock out with every single person that's within the community, which is one of the things that I think is holding a lot of people back.
Then his point is that if you're white and you have some people in your family who do what you would consider low-class stuff, or degenerate stuff, again, you decide that, not me. Whatever you decide is degenerate or low-class. If you thought that was true, you wouldn't say, well, I have to move next to them and help them. You'd be like, those people are bad people. I don't like those people in my community or my whatever. You'd probably move away. Black people often feel like they're supposed to go back. And if they don't, something's wrong. I felt that too. I felt it. I have felt it also.
I think that one of the things, I'll give you an example. We got a black tax. So, for example, let's say, for example, you was raised in a hood, or you come from a space where it was less than stellar, but you make smart decisions, you're intentional, you educate yourself, you become successful. Well, you still have to deal with, and I have people that I coach, I have people that's in my inner circle that say, I got to go back to the hood, or I got to go and deal with these people because they're my family or whatever. We have to learn to separate ourselves, because every single black person or every single culture or every single, individual that's a part of the culture does not necessarily have to be a part of your circle. You got to go where you.
And that piece is both good and bad. And I'll hit both parts of that. The good part is he's right. You don't have to, if you're black, assume that ghetto is your culture. Now look, I grew up in ghetto. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in the South Bronx. So I grew up in the ghetto, and I know the ghetto. And every once in a while, you hear it come out of my mouth every once in a while. It's true. It does come out of my mouth once in a while. But it doesn't mean I define myself by that. It doesn't mean that at all. And it also, but it doesn't mean I don't look down on it. Like I do sometimes go back to my old neighborhood. I do. I go back and I'm on. And it's funny, my daughters are so distant because they never lived there. To them, it's like an odd, crazy place to them. To me, it's like, no, I remember this place. It's I don't mind. Like I don't feel unwelcomed, if that makes any sense. Even though I think in a way I am, because I haven't been back. I haven't lived there in decades because I did go away. Because my father, who also grew up in a ghetto, but he grew up in a ghetto in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and then moved to the Bronx and raised me in the Bronx until he passed away. But he got us out. He moved us out. He was like, I don't want to live around people in the ghetto anymore. And he moved us away. He did what this guy said. So anyway, when they grabbed that piece. No, Mike is there. He says, black is not American black. Part of the problem is confusing the two. American black need to be confident to be who they are, not chasing ideals that political elites declare. Yes, however, there's a however here. Most of the world, and I think this is Jazz's point, when they think of black people, they think of American, like rappers and such, basketball players. That's what they think of. So even though obviously not every black person is that, so people who aren't Americans, but I think a lot of people in the world do think that, even though it's not true. I'm saying you're correct, but people don't always think that way. So yeah. So peace. Thank you for $1 over on Rumble. It seems to me that all these problems are related to education. I'm amazed at what we do. All we do is separate each other. I did not grow up in that environment. I like you or I don't, period. I wish more people were like that. All right. I hope I gave you guys something interesting. I thought it was kind of cool to discuss that piece, to go through it, because it was kind of in the news, or I should say maybe in the culture. Perhaps is a better way of doing it, in the culture. Let me get out of my own way and try to do a bunch of AMA stuff. All righty, let me grab this. Vivek says, do you agree that Donald Trump has had the best foreign policy of every president from FDR onwards? No, but now I got to think. It also depends how you define it. He's had good Middle East policy. No, no. Well, no, that's relative. Okay, this is a tough one. Okay, so it's got to be relative to others. Okay. I haven't been happy with like any of the foreign policies. However, I was going to say Ike, but then Ike did Iran. Reagan was up against the Soviet Union. So if you think that the Soviet Union was maybe the Soviet Union, arguably you could say Nixon. Arguably, he did get us out of Vietnam. I mean, poorly, but he did get us out of Vietnam. And he went to China, opened up China. I can't say yes to that, but I don't know. That's a tough question. You hit me with a tough one, Vivek. I'm trying to just think it out loud as I go down it. It's a tough one. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Yeah. Patty says I have political fatigue. Me too. She says, how do you not have? Who says I don't? Me too. Why do you think I don't always do political stuff? I do political stuff, also cultural stuff, all types of stuff. I do all types of stuff because yeah. I don't want you to do the news every day. You could watch anyone for the news. I want it to be kind of interesting. That's the piece. So yeah, that's the piece I like. So, all righty. Mike says, so what do people who claim there is this fatigue actually mean? Tired of virtue signaling, race baiting? What exactly? I think yes to all that, Mike. I think they are tired of it. I think they're tired of everything being thought of as being a race issue, which again, sometimes it is. I don't want to pretend like it doesn't exist. Of course it exists. But just to nowhere near the level that is projected, right? If you listen to like that other guy who was talking, the guy with the 9 gold chains, I mean, if it told that guy, everybody just wants to yell the N-word. I mean, that's utterly not true. But again, you've met them. You know there are people who are racist. They exist. They're just a very small part of our population. They're very small. The problem is we've decided since that utter idiot Ibram X. Kendi came out with his anti-racist garbage, that because Americans actually weren't heavily racist, he couldn't grift. So he then decided, well, it's not enough to be not to be racist. You got to be anti-racist, which is just some stupid garbage he made up. And now all of a sudden we're all racist again. I mean, well done for him. That's the grift. That's so far the grift of the century. So well done. Massive grift, but utter garbage. So I think people are tired of everything being race because the problem is, as you know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, Mike. If everything's racist, then the actual racists get away with stuff. Right? So they exist. Let's go. Let's be mad at the actual ones. The average American just doesn't care. That doesn't make you racist. I'm sorry. If you even Rex Kendi, that does. But to everyone else, that doesn't. You can just not care. And that's utterly fine and totally good. And we should be there. So, yes. All righty. Mindy says, I would never hide my content behind a paywall. You're either for exposure or not. Do I hide my stuff behind a paywall? I ask you for membership, but you can still watch stuff. Or are you talking to someone else, Mindy? I don't know. I've been talking to me. I don't have stuff. I've thought of doing member-only shows that would be behind a paywall. I have thought of it. I told my team about doing it because a lot of people do that. You're right. And you make money doing that. You do. You make more money doing that because then people who really want it, they pay so they can have access. It becomes very exclusive. You can raise the prices. So clearly I'm a bad businessman because I don't do that. What I do is if you're a member, you get to give me stuff to react to. You get to physically come on the show. But Mindy, everyone can watch. Everyone can watch. Doesn't change. So yes. All righty. Let me grab some more if I can. Joel cracks a joke. Black fatigue. Ninja, please. There we go. Yes. Ninja. That's it. Yes. Ninja. Yes. Mike says, this is a major media guy. I don't think he is. I just thought it was a good, he seemed to have a show with a bunch of people on it that made sense. That's why I grabbed. I think he's like a local guy from some like Philly or something. I don't think he's a major. I think he's in a mainstream like local ABC show out of Philly or something. I think that's what he is. But I don't think he's a major guy. But I thought it was good people on it, so I picked it. So yes. James says, I do find it strange that white people seem to not care for each other as much as they should. It seems that when something happens in the white community, other whites say that can't happen to me. I think this is historical, isn't it? Historically, it hasn't been a big enough problem. So I think that's how we act, right? Historically, we haven't. So yeah, I do think that that's true. It's just, I think that's culture. Morgan says, vote blue no matter who. Yes. And that recently, in the past, say, 20 years, has been black people in general and white women. Those are two people that's been in two groups of people, demographics has been in general. Black women still very loyal. Black men, not so much though. You're seeing black men walk away. You are seeing black men walk away. Hispanic men too, but in the black community, you're seeing black men walk away. That's not as, that doesn't mean black men wouldn't go back to voting for Democrat. But I think the vote blue no matter who with a lot of black men has kind of walked away, has kind of gone away, I should say. Yeah. So Joe goes on to say, it's not as though a presidential candidate could say, if you have a problem figuring out whether to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black. I know no guy would ever say that, Biden. He would never. You're right, Joel. Nobody would say that. Yes. Metalopoly says, I'm not black or white, and all I have are my own experiences. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, the only racism I've experienced here is from one group, and it ain't the white one. Well, to be forward, they have changed the definition of racism to make it okay. I'm not joking. Now, that's not a real change. That is what the cultural left race baiters have changed the definition. They just changed it. What they say is, and again, I don't believe this. I'm telling you what they say and how they changed it to validate it. You can only be racist if you are in a position of power. Otherwise, you can't be racist. Now, that's garbage and wrong, but that would be their response to you. They would say, no. Right? If you're not the group in power, then you can't be racist. So you can be prejudiced, and that's okay because I made that up. I just say so. So yeah, but that's not true. So I can be racist because I'm not white. That will be the response that you would get. So anyway, I hope that at least answers your question. So Shelley goes on, do we get anywhere having this conversation? No, then we'll have the conversation. True. Yes. Looking over on Rumble, Ron Helton says, Biden stated, we have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you can't do it. Poor kids are just as bright and talented as white kids. He's not wrong. However, that's super racist, but he's not wrong. But this goes back to my earlier point, is that many people culturally have always thought that if you're white, you're wealthy, and if you're black, you're poor. Now, clearly that is not true, but I do think there's a stereotype that still exists. That's how it works. Yes. Peace, thank you for the $1 over the rant over on Rumble. I'm trying to develop a flow chart for finding the truth on any topic. What's your process, Larry, for hunting down what's real and what's not? I wish I could give you a better way of doing this, but I'm telling you the way I do it. I try to find sources that give me multiple sides. I use my empathy to kind of see who's thinking what and who's blinded and who's not. Then I just start comparing it to reality. Just because, and often people say things that feel good. Like I acknowledge when the rhetoric is good. It makes some of you crazy when I acknowledge it. But sometimes rhetoric, even though utterly lying, is sometimes positive rhetoric. It makes people feel good. And I recognize that, right? Sometimes we realize that this is it, because it feels good. I want it to be true. This is human nature, right? If it feels good, I want it to be true. So I'm more apt to just, I'm going to believe it. I make sure that even if it feels good, is it actually true? I walk down the roads and see other people saying it. Can I find evidence of it? And I try to find evidence usually in history. That's the issue. So I hope that was helpful. So yeah. All righty. Judge Chan says, we had a family friend who was murdered for fun by a pack of youths. One community held a candlelight vigil while the other rallied for the killers. I'm so done. Yeah, this becomes the other piece that drives me crazy. It's the idea that you just have to pick a side. And it really bothers me, Judge. It bothers me tremendously. Again, you can acknowledge that the war on drugs threw 100,000 cops into the black community. That's true. And to be forward, Democrats did that. It's Bill Clinton and Biden, right? You acknowledge that, which means you're going to have 100,000 more interactions with cops than every other race because you put 100,000 purposely in black communities. Remember, Hillary Clinton called them super predators, right? And Biden didn't want to be a black kids because he put his kids in the jungle. Remember that? These are all the people who love black people who said these words, threw them in there. You can acknowledge that and not decide that every person who's harmed by a cop is by default a saint. Or every person who's a victim of the system is by default a saint. It's not true. This is the George Floyd piece, right? I don't know if George Floyd would have been a good man in the future. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe he would have. Maybe he would have been terrible. I have no idea. But I don't call him a saint. It doesn't matter. We should focus on the fact that he shouldn't have been there. And I go back every time when it comes to George Floyd. If we hadn't had the lockdowns, he wouldn't have been there. The lockdowns what made him lose his job, and that's why he was there. He wouldn't have been there without that. So he fell back into bad behavior. He wouldn't have been on meth, but he was, or was it fentanyl? Whatever he was on, right? He was on that. Yep. And Chauvin was a bad cop with a rap sheet an arm long. Both of those things were true. Doesn't mean that George Floyd's a saint. Doesn't mean he's the best person in the world. Doesn't mean we should have a vigil and think he's awesome. Doesn't mean that. But those other things can still be true. I can't stand the picking one side and the other person is, my guy is perfect and wonderful and your guy's horrible. It drives me crazy. So anyway, Ron brings it up. He remembers what was stated with the stated goal again when Clinton pushed for the policing grants, a cop on every block of the black community. Bill Clinton, I guess, loved black people that much. He wanted to put them all in jail. So well done, Bill Clinton. Well done. Let's see. Metolopoli goes on to say the Daniel Penny case is why nobody wants to protect others in the subway or in public. You're not wrong. I live in New York City. I take the subway. You're not wrong. That's true. I wish that was wrong. Mike says this woman is protecting her ideology. Black fatigue must be racist, or she has to critique the ideology that is her own worldview. Agreed. Her emotion absolutely blinds her intellect. She's not stupid. The woman is smart, Mike. She's a smart woman. Clearly, she's intelligent. Doesn't matter, though. She's blinded by her ideology. She can't see truth. It is impossible. She can't see truth. So, yeah, absolutely. All righty. Let me grab this if I can. Joel goes on to say, as a minority, white population, roughly 16% of the global population is white, I'm going to start playing the white card and start white fatigue. You could, but you'd be more of a global citizen, Joel. So be more of a global citizen. So yes, there we go. Judge goes on to say, Larry, you will always be invited to my cookouts. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yes. All-Seeing Otto says, this is all by design. I want you to be wrong, Otto. But there are days when I start thinking you may be right. Like, I don't like that. So because I don't like it, I want it to be wrong. Doesn't make it wrong. But I want it to be wrong. I don't like that this could be something to get us going again. Right there. This is another thing to divide us and to make us hate each other. It's another thing that will piss off a bunch of black people and make them stay in the Democratic Party because because if you notice, all the vast majority of people who are saying black fatigue is real in the black community, I'll use that phrase, they're conservatives. The vast majority are conservatives. They're self-identified conservative men and women. So see, they're all racist. See, keep voting Democrat. I don't want you to be wrong. Right, Otto, I hope you're wrong. But Mike Voss says, why must every action I do, or you, Larry, represent every black person in America, if not the world? Yep. American blacks aren't monolithic. Thank you. Yet left ideology demand we must be, and thus obey the plantation. True and true. And the worst part, though, Mike, is black people who agree with it. You're not black because you don't talk the way I tell you to talk. You don't say what I tell you to say. You're not black. You don't vote the way I tell you to vote. You're not black. Black people say that. Yes. Frank says 30% of the black community is in complete and total crisis. It's a crisis of the heart, the mind, the soul, and the spirit. I have seen, I don't know if 30% is true. That's believable, but I don't know the data, but it's believable. It is a serious problem. And what I always say all the time is desperate people do desperate things. It's true. Desperate people. Why would you see people do so many things that are so obviously harmful, so obviously going to get them in jail or in trouble, so obviously self-destructive? Because why bother? You're right. I'm in community. I'm in crisis. My community's in crisis. Crisis of the heart, the mind, the soul, the spirit. Why bother? I'm not going to buy a house ever. I'm not going to have a relationship ever. I'm never going to be close to my kids ever. I'm not going to get a good job and make any good money ever. I'm not going to go to college or anything. I'm not going to do any of these things. Why do I care? I'll just go out, have a good time, do stupid stuff. I'll get locked up again. I've been locked up before. I'll get locked up again. I'll get out eventually. I'll have a bunch of fun. I'll get locked up again. Till eventually I get taken out in the street somewhere. Whatever. And I think you find people who feel that way. I agree. People, to be happy, I say all the time, they need to feel loved, they feel respected, they need to have purpose. And a lot of these people actually are loved because family, friends, a lot of them actually are loved. That's one thing they are. Many of them are, not all, but many of them are, who are having these problems. But they fight for respect. And particularly men, and particularly young men will do anything for respect. I will say it again. They will do anything for respect. If that means I have to harm someone, harm myself, do something crazy, okay. Anything for respect. If I got to do time, go to jail, okay. Anything for respect. So that's a critical aspect. And they have to have purpose. They often don't have a purpose. Remember, people who are unhappy, I'm bringing this up all the time, but you'll see it again. People who are unhappy are always striving for short bursts of pleasure. People who are happy don't do that as much. So the happier you are, the less you try to achieve short bursts of pleasure. The less happy you are, the more you do that. These are unhappy people. You're right. It is a crisis. It's a good word. I like that. It is absolutely one. Yes. All right. Rick says, I have white women scold fatigue more than black fatigue. Well, that's another point. I think you're right, Rick. Right? The two groups that go together are black people and then the white women. And most white women that have a savior complex. I know it makes you angry. Some people hear that, but it's true. Many of them do. Those women, not all white women, please. I don't want the all please get me. But those white women that Rick's talking about, they have a white savior complex. So they all think they know better. They're all going to save all the black people because they care. They don't care about themselves, but they care about the black people. They're going to save them all. And they scold all day long. And I told you last November, America is tired of being scolded. We're just tired. And we don't care anymore. We don't care. Guillotine says, black fatigue going viral. It's true. It's true. It is. And I saw it. I saw it everywhere. Yes. Absolutely. All right. I don't know who he's talking about. Your great granddaddy is what I don't know what you're asking. I do have a great granddad who white. That's true. I do. His name was Johann. That's true. Yes. All righty. Let's see if I can go down here. The Off List says Obama sent race relations back several decades. You know, Obama was the first president that I was actually disappointed in. Maybe a second. First Bush I was disappointed in. Now, okay, second. There were two presidents that I was actually disappointed in. Why? All the other ones I knew were going to be bad. So they were still bad. I wasn't surprised. My first vote was for the first George W. Bush. The first George Bush in 88. And I thought it was going to be great because I was a Marine. He was my commander in chief, right? My first commander in chief was Reagan, but I didn't get to vote until 88 because I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I wasn't voting then. And Reagan was president when I joined. So Reagan was my first commander in chief. My first chance to vote as a Marine was for George H.W. Bush. And I thought it was going to be great because I'm voting for him as the commander in chief, and he sucked. And I was like, okay, disappointed. The rest of the guys I voted for, all third parties. And I never thought they were going to do anything. I didn't care. So I wasn't, they were bad, but I wasn't disappointed. I expect them to suck. I thought Obama was going to be different. I fell for the lie. I fell for the hopey changey thing. I fell for it. A lot of people didn't. I did. I thought, okay, he's going to be different. And boy, was he disappointing. I was disappointed in him. And that's why I didn't vote for him in 2012. I voted for him in 2008 because I bought it. 2012, I was like, I'm done. I knew by 2010 that it was okay. It's a disaster. So I completely agree. And I've been third party independent the whole time. So, yep. Any case, let me keep going down. Steven says, Black folks are sick and tired of striving for peace of mind and a life of economic equality for our families. It's not just racism, it's somewhat our own doing. It's a valid point that we often do pay a price for people who seem to not care. And that's the lack of respect piece that drives me crazy, right? The idea that someone would trash everything to get some respect in some way, shape, or form, wrecking the lives of someone else who doesn't want to, right? If I'm hanging out with you, Steve, and you have something to lose and I don't, I have nothing to lose. I don't care if I go back in the joint again. I don't care. I don't care if I see my kids. I don't care. I'm a 4-time baby daddy. I don't care. I'm that guy. You don't want to be around me because I'm going to do stupid stuff because I don't care. I have nothing to lose and I have nothing to live for. You do. So you don't want to be around me. And not just that, now people are going to see you and go, oh, he's one of them. And they're going to assume you don't care either. They're going to assume you, like me, you're a 3-time baby daddy and don't care if you go to jail. So yeah, it's agreement. That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be Black fatigue. I understand why it is, but I agree with the first thing. I think it's a terrible name. I don't like it. I'd rather it be ghetto fatigue or to Rick's point, scolding fatigue or something else, because it isn't actually race. It isn't actually race, but now it's become race. And I don't want it to be because it's actually cultural. That's the issue. So in any case, all righty. Let me grab a couple more of this if I can. All right. Ron says, I live in a smaller town, so ghetto fatigue is not really a thing here. Well, it is because you see it outside. Like you see it in other things, whether it's the news or something like that. You see it someplace else. So it can be, right? Peace, thank you for the $3 over on Rumble. Says, I wrote an article, The MESS virus, MESS, misplaced evolutionary survival skills. It's the deadliest of mind viruses. Deception has an evolutionary purpose, like insect camouflage. It turns on us. Ooh, I like that. That's good. Deception used to have a purpose. True. He also goes on to, I want to make sure I bring this piece up. I brought up earlier that I did not put it on, so I do want to grab some of the older ones I did not talk about here from Rumble. Let's see here. Joel says, liberal fatigue is making the rounds TikTok too. Well, yeah, but now they're making it political, which is actually cultural. So they're making it racial or they're making it political when it's actually cultural. They're both wrong, Joel. Don't do it. It's a cultural issue is what it really is, right? My BA lady says, Herman Cain, RIP, and Dr. Ben Carson are conservatives. Yes, they both got railed by Democrats. 100% true. Yes, because they weren't the right kind. They weren't real Black people. See, that's the problem. They weren't real Black people because they didn't fit the mold. To Mike's point, they didn't fit the mold. Therefore, they're not really that. And there we go. So yes, absolutely. Joel says, reparations would fix all of this somehow? Sorry. Reparations would have. I don't know if we can fix it now. I'm being forward with you. But could it have? Yes. The original concept of reparations back in 1865 was a wonderful idea. It's called 40 acres and a mule, but it wasn't necessarily 40 acres. The concept was, for those you don't know, it was put up by General Sherman, and Lincoln was going to do it, but then Lincoln got shot, and Lincoln getting shot wrecked everything. Lincoln's getting shot was the worst thing that could happen for the end of the Civil War. He actually wanted to win the peace, right? His successors only wanted to win the war. They didn't care about the peace at all. He wanted to win the peace. And his goal was, which is why there was no peace treaty signed. He just let the South come back in. He did not want to have a harsh peace treaty. He didn't want that. He did none of that. So the concept was the slave owners would have to divvy up their land and give it to the slaves who worked on that land. That's perfect reparations. The slave owners who took the free labor from the slaves would have to give up their land back to the slaves who worked on it. So the poor white guys who don't have slaves don't get punished. Makes total sense. That's wonderful. Great idea, right? Fair. There it is. You work that land. This guy took your free labor. He gives you reparations. Life is good. I love that idea. Not just that. The Army, the Union Army, had literally like 1 million or more mules that it was using because you don't have trucks and cars back then, 1800s, right? So they would use mules to bring supplies back and forth, to carry firearms, to carry cannon. Well, the war's over. What am I going to do with all these mules? Give them to slaves. That's where the 40 acres and a mule piece came from. If that had happened in 1865, 1866, yeah, it'd be different because there wouldn't have been the segregation. It would have been voluntary integration, voluntary segregation. And we know already from what actually happened once they ended segregation, slowly over time, black and white people integrate. That's what happens naturally. Well, now if you had all these small farmers with a bunch of white small farmers, they would start integrating because that's just what they would do. They would start to intermarry, they would start to do business together. That would have happened naturally. So if we had done reparations in 1866, yes, I think we'd be in a much better spot, but we didn't. But yes, I think that would have been. Instead, America gave reparations to the slave owners. I wish I was joking. I'm not. So the government gave money to the slave owners for losing their slaves. So here's money. That's what actually happened. I know. Peace goes on to talk about his Google AI Pro. Sorry. Hey, Sharpies, Google AI Pro is free for 30 days. I know many are interested in learning more about AI. This is a great chance to mess around with it. Find the link pinned to my X account. His X account is @PeaceLogic. Go check that out and you can figure it out. So yes, and he says he receives no financial incentives. If you want to check it out, please go ahead. Peace is a good guy. I met him. I know him. He's a good guy. So we are going to do some work coming up here too. So yes. All righty. He goes on to say, I'm trying to think of an interesting question. I go blank on this topic. We love issues related to our peace, place in life, genetics, etc. Do I have gay fatigue? With respect, to be forward. We didn't really have a gay fatigue. I feel like, and I don't know why, but I feel like American culture kind of embraced gay culture after the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. I think 90s and 2000s, America kind of embraced gay culture, like as being cool or fun or exciting or something. I think that was true. I think at one point we started getting maybe trans fatigue. And that was the backlash you're seeing now with the transgender kids. I think there was some trans fatigue. I think there was some of that. But I didn't feel it, at least. Maybe I'm off here. Then again, I also live in New York City, and the gay community is very strong here. So maybe it's because where I live. So I could be off on that. I guess it's my feeling. I have no data. That's my emotion. It could be wrong. But that's my feeling. So yeah, I hope that makes sense at least. So, all righty. Let me keep walking down this road if I could. So many of these. I like it. Kim goes on to say, you don't have to be white to be racist. Using the N-word doesn't mean you're racist. Maybe the use of the N-word is a crime, is an infringement on free speech. True, true, and true. Yes, absolutely true. I agree. We've made it to where you can't even say it, which is silly. It has always been my opinion that there's legally no barriers. Obviously, no barriers legally. Socially, I've always thought that using the N-word in anger at someone is wrong socially. Again, not legally, socially. You should be punished socially for doing that. So calling someone that name in an attempt to anger them, to dismiss them, socially, there should be punishments for that. Again, not legally, socially. But if you just use the word, maybe you're singing along with a song, or you're saying what someone else said, or you're using it not to mean that, right? I sometimes use the N-word. I do. But when I use it, I don't use it as an insult. I use it to mean, sometimes use it to mean guy or friend or brother even, right? And if you're in the black community or you have people in the black community, you know what I mean when I say that. It's not the hard R, obviously. It's the A. So I have used it in the past. And I grew up in the ghetto. Of course, we called ourselves that every day. So that was the norm. So in my view, and this is my view, some people think, nope, no one can use the word ever. I think that's a dumb aspect. I don't like that idea. But should there be social punishment, social only, not legal, social punishment for someone using it in anger against someone? Yeah. Should you be able to just say it because you're describing or talking or reading it out of a Mark Twain book? Yeah. Why not? Missy says Daryl Davis is awesome. He is. Matt says I've got Israel fatigue. When it comes to politics, Israel's everywhere. I get it. I get it. Absolutely. Yes. I completely get it. Yes. Absolutely. So Ron's with you. He says, I as well. So sick of our country supporting the genocide over there. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rick says the cure for racism isn't anti-racism. True. It's non-racism. True. True. You don't have to be anti-racist. That's some stuff they made up. Just don't care is fine. Just don't care. It's fine. Just be like, whatevs. I don't care. It's fine. No worries whatsoever. Totally good. Yes. Tom says, I never knew one Triple K Marine. I was in the Corps. Well, maybe it isn't that common anymore. I mean, I was in the Corps a couple years ago. I don't know how long you were, Tom, but I met more than one. And I think I did too. So it could be timing, maybe. Or also, were you on the ground side? If you on the air, I've never met any of them in the air on the air wing, only on the ground side. Infantry guys. Yeah, more the elite guys. So that's who I met. So that's just that's my example. So, or my experience, I should say. So yes. All righty. Let's see here. Grab a couple more of these. We discussed that part already. All right. Tom goes on to say, it seems as of lately, there are so many videos of blacks behaving horribly. Yes. And I don't know if that's on purpose either. That makes me also think, is this on purpose? You know, maybe. I hope not. I don't want to believe that. Yes. Rick goes on to say the LBJ Grace Society supplanted culture with the state. True. Yes. True. That was one of the worst things we could have done here. Yes. One of the worst things we could have done here. Yep. Missy says it's a very, very important to have these conversations. Larry is really good about that. I want to have them. I don't want people to be afraid to have them, because if they're afraid to have them, nothing ever gets settled. Nothing gets dealt with. Nothing gets, look, we have to have these conversations so we can move forward. That's it. And you can respect someone's past without necessarily thinking, well, now they're a victim, right? You can respect someone's past without saying they were a victim. And even if someone had a worse past than you or a better past than you, it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden better or worse. You can still respect them. Either way, it's okay. So, yes. All right. My VA lady over in Rumble says, where else can you get content like this? Send a Rumble rant in with your comment question and show support for Larry Sharpe. Click the green $sign. True. You can't get anything else. No one else talks like this. They all just come up one side. I'm a conservative black guy. All the libs are bad. I'm a liberal black guy. All the conservatives are bad. That's it. So yes. Mike says there are more slaves in the world today than at any point in past. Yes, chattel slavery. Chattel slavery is almost non-existent. You got to tell me, you find me where there's actual chattel slavery. You're going to struggle for that one. You're going to struggle for that one. But leftists don't care and ignore it as it doesn't help push ideology and obedience. True, but there's tons of slaves. You're correct, but it's not chattel. That it's hard to find that. You got to really look for that. Most of the slavery now, if you see it now, it's not. Right? It's not. And they do eventually escape in some way, shape, or form. Often it's death, sadly, but they often do escape. And often it is death, though. So, yes. All righty. Let me go down here if I could. Phil goes on to say, that was what seemed to be a theme in the Black Panther film. The diaspora community was cut off from the richness of the African culture and traditions, vibrating with culture. And that was an issue, right? That whole piece, yes. The concept of not knowing where you're actually from. And that is an issue, right? Not knowing where you're from. Remember, even if you were, if you were a slave and you knew you came from a certain area, it would change. Like I've done the ancestry testing, so I know where my ancestors come from, but only because now I've done the testing. I did 3 different places to make sure it was correct because I didn't know if I trusted one of them. I said 3. One of them was actually a laboratory. I had 3 of them, so I know that I come from the Hausa tribe, which is now in eastern Nigeria, northern Cameroon, where that tribe is. That's where my ancestors came from. So they're probably grabbed from there, right? They were grabbed from there in some way. So yeah. And again, many people will say, well, Africans helped, to enslave Africans. True. Doesn't change that people had issues and concerns. It's still true. Yes. Ron says serfs were all-purpose slaves of feudal lords. They could be conscripted, driven off the land, or killed by the holder of the land. Yeah, serfdom is one step above slavery. I agree. One step above. And a lot of people in the Slavic world were slaves. That's true. Or were serfs. So, yes. Yes. Absolutely. All righty. Kim says, if slaves were white in a white community, they would have a great advantage of running away to freedom. It's hard to hide in a white crowd if you're black. True, and that was the whole purpose. For those people talking about the 1619 Project, sadly, that has become just like a thing that it's all about. That's just kind of all about, white people bad. That's what that is about. But the concept of 1619, the conception is actually a good concept. It discusses how the government was afraid of the lower classes, right? So it decided to make black and white different to ensure they would fight each other. I'm not making this up. That actually is what happened, right? Bacon's Rebellion, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. This was just the people who were like the serfs and indentured servants said, we're tired of these rich people. We're black and white. We don't care. We're going to go get rid of these guys. And the guys were in charge and said, wait a minute. We can't have this happen. So what we're going to do is go, okay, black people are slaves and white people are indentured servants, which is better than slaves. So hate each other. And it worked. That's what actually happened. So yes. So Brian, thank you for the $2, my friend. I might just maybe have KFC fatigue. I do not at all. I still love KFC. I don't have it that much. As we know, I'm on keto because keto is magic. We've discussed this. And if I do have chicken, fried chicken, I do sometimes have fried chicken. If I do, it is KFC because KFC is the least carby of the fried chickens. So that's the one I'll have if I have it. So there we go. That Liberty Lady, a member for 2 months. Thank you. Great viewing numbers tonight across all platforms. Maybe Larry's getting past the band of the shadow. I hope so. Maybe Mr. Rhythm is on our side. Right, guys, yes. You know that I have been banned shadow type for literally years. If you guys could jump on board and help me out, I would love that. Please click the button that is known as like. Click that button. That's how I get around this. Also, if you can repost it to somebody, repost it into a Facebook page, repost it into a Facebook group, repost it on X, share it on wherever you go, share it on that thing. If you have not connected yet, please come connect with me on Facebook, X, and Rumble. If you have not subscribed to Sharpe YouTube, please do so and click all notifications if you can. It is important so you know when I go live. You know, I go live almost every day at around 7-ish or so in that area. Please do so. It does matter. If you have not become a member, please do so if you can. If you can become a member, please do so. It's $49 per month. Larry, it's $5 a month. Yes, but I'm really good looking. So stop complaining. You get to see me like 5 times a week. As you can see me anytime. That's fine. Doesn't matter. The point is, $5 is not that much. But if it is for you, if you're in a tough spot, and I have been there too, no worries. You don't have to. What you can do is click the button known as like. That's free. That's free. And you still get to see me. Come on. What a bonus that is. What a bonus that is. You get all the goodies. Shh. I am spoiling you. Clearly. Yes. Ingevity says everyone's ancestors struggled more than we all do today. True. So we should be proud of that. I'm with you. Yes. Kim says, say this is what my grandma did for me. Yes. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Just say that. Say this is what my grandma did for me. And I am so proud of my grandma. She went through so much more stuff than I did. And now I get to be a doctor and a psychotherapist and blah, blah, blah. I could do all these. I could come on a TV show, all these great things because of what my grandma did. She fought for me. I think everybody would be like, yeah, that's great. And if someone doesn't, then they're a jerk. But otherwise, you should be like, yeah, you know what? Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I think that would have been the best way. Everyone would have got that. Everyone would have been like, yay, I get that completely. Yes. So, all right. Money Green says, I signed an international distribution. In the contract, you're not allowed to make racist music, homophobic music, but you can say the N-word all day long. That's terrible. Money Green, that's terrible. So you can do that. So you can degrade all day long in that case, but yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yes. Shags Malone says, do you think white people kidnapped and enslaved Africans, or did Africans enslave and South Africans? We do know for sure it's both, but it was much more Africans who did it. Were there some white slavers? Yes, there were. There were absolutely white slavers that exist, and they did capture black people and sell them. That did happen. But far more, it was Africans selling other Africans. But both existed. But again, does it actually matter? That is often a point people make to try to say, Well, black people are bad too. All people are good and bad. I'm not saying any of that. So yes, I think that the data that we have is that there were white slavers, but far fewer. The vast majority were African slavers. The white people did mostly buying, very few actual kidnapping. But there were some. I'm going to be clear. There were some white people who were slavers who actually went and caught the people. There were some, but the vast majority were Africans. But most of them were doing it because they wanted the money or because they were fighting wars. They would take slaves. Prisoners of war at that time were enslaved. So yeah, that was a common thing. So yeah. Jazz says, why do most of them believe they are still oppressed? Because they're told that every day, Jazz. Every day. Because they're told it every day. I see it. I remember, this is probably late 90s. I'm working at a marketing company. And there's we're sitting around, and there's a black woman there and a black man there, part of our team. And the black woman was always angry about something, always angry. Stereotypical, I know, but it was just true. She was. She did fit that stereotype. Always angry about something. And then she literally said these words. She said, today is no different than slavery. I looked like, what? She said, yeah, it's the same, no change. Same as slavery today. And I said, what? Again, like I couldn't believe it. I thought she was joking. I thought it was like an exaggeration or a joke or something, but it wasn't funny. So I was like, that's a terrible joke. Oh, she meant it. She meant it, Jazz. This is like 1998, maybe in that area. She meant it. And I'm like, it's not. And I literally said, it's not slavery. Like, it's not slavery. It's not. It's not. No, you get to like own a car and go to get a house and meet people and stuff. It's not slavery, right? She's like, well, they treat us bad. I said, okay, so they don't treat you well. Okay, yeah, okay. And maybe they're racist. Okay, maybe they are. Okay, but it's not slavery. But she was, and the black guy just quiet, didn't say a word. Just quiet, said nothing. And the white people said nothing. They were so she just got away with it. I was the only guy who said something. Black guys didn't say a word. White people said nothing. She just said that. So why would they think that? Because, Jazz, she can say that. And only an idiot like me will say anything. Everyone else just go, okay. Won't call her out. Won't tell her she's crazy. Won't say she's wrong. Well, she probably said that often because she felt comfortable saying, and again, this was a work environment, Jazz. A work environment. This wasn't like, hanging out at the club. No, work environment at the bar. Work environment. She said that out loud in the big meeting. Yep. No one would say a word. Only I did. That's why. I hope I answered your question. That's why. Yes. So Michael's going to say change in 1992 with gangster rap. I think, yes, that's a good time frame, but I think it started earlier, I think. Originally, rap wasn't gangster rap. For those of you who weren't around during that time, originally rap was party music, right? So you would rap so that you could sing and dance. It was party music. Do drugs to it also. That's what it was. But in the early 90s, yeah, Mike's right. It really became, in fact, rap went from party music almost to like trying to be almost like a political with groups like Public Enemy. And I would argue even Eric B. and Rakim were kind of much more political in that regard. But then by the time 92 came out, you're right. It was almost all gangster. It was almost all gangster. It's true. It's true. So anyway. Thomas says, black markets are a good thing, and all people should practice hiding some financial transactions from the king's men. True, but the problem is it puts you in jail. So yes, but it puts you in jail. That's the issue. Yes. So Shelly says, don't forget the blood test for marriage licenses to keep blacks and whites from marrying and procreating. They were actually just open laws that just said you couldn't. They didn't require, the blood tests weren't required for that. Marriage licenses in general are for control, true, but not just for race. Yes, and is what I'm saying. They weren't just for race. They were for many things. But they just made laws. You just couldn't do it. When I was adopted, I'm adopted, for those you don't know. In New York State, I'm born in Manhattan. I'm born in New York City. Live in New York City to this day. I'm a city boy. When I was adopted, this is New York State. There were race laws, yes, in New York, not Alabama, not Mississippi. Race laws in New York for adoption. Yes. I couldn't be adopted by a white family. Yep. That's what it was. That's crazy. Totally crazy. Yes. Money says, where were these people during the civil rights era? They fled here after we fought damn cowards. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are you talking about? Oh, about immigrants coming now? Oh, maybe immigrants. Okay. Yep. And it is true. There are a lot of people who are now benefiting from the fights that we have for civil rights. It's true. I think you're right. That's true. Someone did. I agree with that. Thank you for the $5, MW Knox. It may be a coincidence, but it's interesting how the black fatigue convo in America parallels the fall of SA after the post-apartheid honeymoon. Does it? I feel like you're stretching on that one. South Africa. Let me think on that one. I'm not sure. That sounds like you're stretching on that one. I don't think South Africa and America are connected like that. I'm not sure. I don't see it. I'm gonna think on that one. It feels like a stretch to me. Yeah. Shags Malone says people have the palm because they're the ones that gave you freedom, something you always had but refused to exercise. Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting. Okay. Mastermind Hour says, Shelly, I think that was to keep RH positive mothers from marrying RH negative fathers. They haven't done a good job of that because many did that. Those of you who don't know, RH positive and negative together increase the odds of a miscarriage. So yes, if the blood type doesn't match, it increases the odds of a miscarriage within the mother. Some people didn't know that, but that's actually true. So yes. All right, let's see if I can go here again. Peace Lodge, thank you for your $1. He says over on Rumble. He says, I did some research with AI and I noticed this. Keto, high animal fat protein, increase mortality risks and higher risk of CVD, cancer, and metabolic diseases. Have you seen this research, Larry? It's not true. Not true. Keto is magic. Clearly, your AI has been duped. Keto is magic. Sorry. And if I say it's magic, it's just magic. That's how that works. Sorry. There we go. So, alrighty. Let me see if I go down here. Okay. Grab that one already. Good. I'm trying to grab some more if I can. AB Doe says, only real parents can fix it, and blacks are lacking way too many. It will never be fixed. There is a problem. There is a problem with parenting in general. If you remember, I just did a show on this a couple of days ago. Parenting in Gen Alpha and Gen Z in general is a problem. But yeah, if they don't exist, even worse. And it's heavily a lack of fathers. Heavily done because of court systems, everything. Yes, absolutely. John says, yes, things have changed and we need to acknowledge that they have changed. My dad worked with a black man in the late 50s and 60s when they were in a town in Northern Virginia. They had to be careful where they went for lunch because some places did not serve black people. Yep. Well, it was the 1990s, and my wife goes in for a job interview to work for that same town, and the head of HR is a black man's wife, a black woman. Yeah. Yeah, they have changed. Look, is it perfect? Of course not. Of course. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's way better. My father, because he was sitting with a friend, not even dating, was a white woman, was a friend. He was talking to her. And again, this was New York City, not Alabama, not Mississippi, New York City. A guy smashed him in the head with a can opener. Remember back in the 60s, they used to have the can openers that would open up a bottle or open up a can. Right now, it's the pull top. But back then it was that. Took that, smashed him in the head, cut my dad's head open, bleeding all over the place. Guy didn't get arrested. Nothing happened at all. New York. But that's the 60s. That's not today. So can I say my dad went through a whole lot worse than I did or that you did or my daughters do? Yes. Yes. I can say that. Doesn't mean all of a sudden we're victims. I can acknowledge what people went through. You can acknowledge it. It's okay. I like acknowledging it. Yes. Money says they hung our ancestors in trees. She got a government job. And I think she's better. You know, it's a valid point, right? I don't want the opposite either. To your point, I don't want us to forget what we went through either. Right? Both of those things are important. I don't want us to lean on it and make it a crutch so that we can't move forward. I don't want to forget about it either. Right? I mean, look at again, I use Jewish community here in New York. They don't forget the Holocaust. They don't use it as a crutch now. They go, oh my God, so now Jews can't move forward because of Holocaust. They don't do that, but they don't forget it. We should do the same thing with slavery. Let's not forget it. And what I would say worse was the apartheid after slavery. We should remember that. The battles we had to fight. Let's remember it. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden now it's a crutch. But we can remember it, be proud of it, talk about it. Nothing wrong with that at all. So yes. So anyway, Shags Malone says, ding, ding, ding. If you allow bad behavior in a specific group, you will find more bad behavior in the future in that specific group. True. Yes. True. I completely agree. That piece is important. That piece is critical. So yes. All righty. Stone Decor says, how are you going to separate yourself from a person next door? So the son of my neighbor breaks the law and it's my fault. It's utterly unfair, Stone. But sadly, I think often true. I think often that people actually do decide, oh, you look like, you act like you're one of them. I think that's common. I think it's a common issue. Even though wrong, you're correct. It's not fair, but I still think true. And I think we have to accept that, right? We just have to accept that. So yeah. All righty. Let's see if I can go. Phil says, I think a lot of Italians do this in a lesser way. There are a lot of people who like to pretend they like The Godfather and start using a Brooklyn accent they never had. So now when Tony Soprano makes the mob cool, all of a sudden now the Italians who aren't mobbed up pretend to be mobbed up. Is that what it is? Everyone thinks Tony Soprano now? I like that idea. I like the idea. Yeah. That's actually funny. If I was Italian, I might pretend I'm a mobster then. Yeah, I'm Tony Soprano. That's me. No, I wouldn't do that. Yes. Ron says, Calvin Coolidge is probably the last one to have good policies. The rest have been meddling and warmongers. True. Yes. Jazz says, yes, Sharpe, you explained it well. That's what I meant. Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad I explained it. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I'm trying to do the best piece I can. Right? So yes. All righty. Thomas says, Jazz, you are correct. Here in Scandinavia, we didn't have problems with black immigrants until after a gangster rap had made its mark on the young generation. Yeah, it is a big deal. Yes. So Roger says, Larry, got here late. Did you correctly define black fatigue as described by Mary Frances Winter's Black Fatigue, how racism erodes the mind, body, and spirit? Yes, but not as good as that. I did, but not as good as that. That's actually better. That's actually better. But yes, I did, but not as good as that, Roger. But that's how I started off with. Yes. What it used to be. So Peace Logic says, which pod do you listen to most? Second. I'm trying to remember. I watch hours of podcasts every day. Hours every day. I have four different YouTube accounts. Each one of them has different For You pages. That's why I have four of them. And I go through all of them every day. And try to grab whatever I think is at the top of news or top of my For You page. I look for them. And when I saw this Black Fatigue on more than one, I thought, it's Black Fatigue. So I saw it on more than one of them. So do you count news shows? Hold on. There we go. Is that better? There we go. Do you count news shows? I watch a lot of it's up and down. I wish I could tell you. I'm trying to one of the most common ones I used to watch, but I don't watch it anymore. I used to watch a lot of Diary of the CEO. I don't really watch it anymore. It's been boring recently. And his show's just too long. It's like a 3-hour show that could easily be in half an hour. My show is long, but my show's entertaining and back and forth. His is just too long of an interview. And it's often boring. Now, recently. So I don't watch that. But I used to watch that a bit. Not as much now. I like Peter Boyle's economic show. I like that too. I watch that once in a while. Not as much, but only when something interesting pops up, I do that. When it comes to the Ukraine war, I watch Willie OAM probably at least once a week, if not twice a week, to kind of get me up to speed on the Ukrainian war. So I have an idea. He isn't perfect, but at least I'll know what I'm talking about if I watch that. So maybe those three, maybe. If I count news, I zip through Breaking Points and The Hill very often. Like I'll just pop in and pop out. The Hill does like the first set, like tells then the two guys talk about stuff, which is boring. The talk is usually boring. So I listen to the first part, and then if I think it's interesting, I might watch some of it. Then I'll just zip through it because it's gonna be boring. Breaking Points has become the We Hate Trump show. So I just watched it the first 2 minutes into their segment, then I ignore that. I watch Young Turks. That's my left-leaning show that I watch. Young Turks, and sometimes Jimmy Dore. And Actual Justice Warrior. He's my right-leaning guy. He does right-leaning for me. So yeah, so I do watch Actual Justice Warrior. He's right-leaning for me. And yeah, so I think that's it. I used to watch Tim Pool, but he's become the same stuff to me every day, so I don't really watch Tim Pool that much anymore. I used to. I will sometimes watch Matt Walsh because he's my right-leaning. I also watch Kim Iverson and Sabby Sab. Sabby Sab is my left-leaning. So I try to get left and right all the time. Yes, I'm a guy who watches Sabby Sabs and also Matt Walsh. I know it seems weird, but yes, I do watch both. So I hope that was at least understandable what I was saying. You might think I'm crazy, but that's fine. Patty says the show Shameless showed white ghetto families. True. Yes. But again, with the point is most people don't think of that as white culture. But many people think that black ghetto is black culture. But yeah, I mean, there's ghetto everywhere. You're right. Yes. Grand Rapids says, I know they sent innocent black people, even during a lot of racism, to Vietnam. True. But ever try to mow their lawn unpaid when they throw Arby's and Bed Bath & Beyond S on the grass all the time? But ever try to mow their lawn when they throw Arby's and Bed Bath & Beyond shit on the grass? Are you saying that they don't take care of their homes? I think that's a problem. And that, again, is a cultural class problem. There, I know, and I'm sure you do too, lots of black people who live in very nice houses who take care of the houses very much. It's a class issue or it is a culture issue. But yeah, I mean, there's white people who got 4 cars on their lawn. So, and not one of them work. No license, not a license plate to be found. So I think, yeah, I think it's both. I can see it. So yeah. All righty. Let me walk down here if I can. So many. I appreciate all these guys. I really do. I'm going to try to grab things if I can. All righty. John says, white people used to sit together by religion and country of origin. True. It's very common. The communities were much stronger. But both of these things have become a much smaller part of white culture. Also true. Yes. Also true. I agree. Yes. Grand Regent Thrag says, how can I be racist without getting the benefits that come with being racist? There we go. You have to be, I guess, a wealthy white guy who has a big audience. I think that is the way you can. You can get all the benefits. So yes. There we go. Razor says, society is going to be ready to have the DNA IQ conversation soon. I think we've already had that. I think we have. I think we've already had that. Yeah. AO or A0, 1345 says, why does the black community also have dislike against Asians? There's a reason why. And it's a reaction to a type of gentrification. You see it many places. You see Asians come in and buy up a lot of the retail outlets in black communities. And that comes from, people say, well, the black people don't buy it. Well, initially, when that started happening in the 60s. In the 60s, when they changed the immigration laws, many Asians came into America and many of them came to cheaper areas, which was heavily black communities. They might go, why didn't the black people buy it? Because at that time in the 60s, literally it was against the law. I'm not joking. There were rules for mortgages, rules for loans where they couldn't give these loans to black people. I'm not making that up. It was literally federal law, federal guidelines. So the black people couldn't legally, that's where the black market comes in. They couldn't legally buy a lot of these shops. But who could? The Asians came. The Asians came, and many of them, again, immigrants often self-select. people who are coming here are wealthy enough to come here, have entrepreneurial spirit, have large families, or have cash. So they showed up and able to buy a lot of these areas starting in the 60s. It's been happening for a while, but it began heavily in the 60s. And so many of the Black people were angry. They felt like the Asian people were invaders, that they would come into the community, take their money, and then not live there anymore. Right? They moved there initially and then got wealthy, moved away, but keep the store. That would happen often. So that's the history behind that piece. So I'm not saying it's right. You asked why it has happened. That's why it has happened. So yes, I hope that makes sense. So, all right. Shags Malone says, if you don't want people to say the N-word, you just stop selling it. True. A lesson that should have been learned from slavery. All Africans had to do was stop selling them. True. Yes. Absolutely true. Yes. Absolutely. All right. Mike says, okay, cleanse the palate. Shocker. Trump saying Harvard can't have foreign students is too much and court correct to block this. You agree, at Larry? This to me seemed like such a dumb thing that I didn't really push hard on this thing. But of course I don't want Trump saying Harvard can't do something. What I want Trump doing is saying, Harvard, I'm not giving you money, period. I don't care what you do, right? We should stop giving Ivy League multi-billion-dollar colleges money, period. So should he say Harvard can't do something? No. Harvard's a private organization, do whatever the hell it wants. And he should say, I'm not giving you any money, Harvard, good luck. Do whatever you want. Is the court right to block it? Yeah, you shouldn't do it. But the court should also say, it's also wrong to be just giving them money. So don't give them money and take who you want. I don't care. I don't care. Do they have cash? They have cash. I don't care. So that's my view on that. So Peace, thank you for the $1, says, inspiration, NASA's Punch mission has captured a stunning rainbow, like phenomenon in space, showcasing colorized zodiacal light created by sunlight reflecting off dust particles orbiting the sun. I love that. I've always said this. I love the space race. I think space stuff is awesome. We should keep doing it. We should not stop. It is so good. We should keep doing it. Yes. All right. Grand Rapids says, I'm 1/16 Jewish. Okay. But if you see your TV floating in the dark, it's not being sold by a white man. That was kind of a racist joke. Okay. Anyway, it's fine. Razor says, more white smoked crack, more white smoked meth. The most white trash trailer parks aren't as bad as black towns. I'm not sure that's true. That last part, I'm not sure is true. There are some rough trailer parks, dude. There's some rough trailer parks. I'm not sure the last part is true. I don't know where you get that from. I don't know where you get that from. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't see that one. So, Grand Regent says it was never about George Floyd being a saint. It's not about that ever. It's about their rights being violated. Agreed, but I think people have done it, and that's the problem. My problem is there are people who start talking about how awesome he is instead of talking about how his rights were violated. That's my problem. I'm with you. It shouldn't matter if George Floyd is a greatest guy ever or a terrible guy. It shouldn't matter. Now, unless there's one exception. If, and he did not know, if the officers know in advance that the guy they're coming across is a violent, horrible guy who harms people or whatever, and they're scared because they know in advance this is the guy, then maybe I could, okay, maybe. But that wasn't the case here. So no, I agree with you. My problem, Grand Regent, is that people did say that. He was a great father, but you don't know. First, you don't know if he's a great father. He might have been, but they don't know. They're just saying that because they want to make him, they want the opposite. The problem is the people who, and I did a whole piece on this when Candace Owens was hammering him. I just hammered Candace Owens on this because Candace Owens went out of her way to try to find out how bad he was. And why did she do it? Because she cared? No, because she wanted to validate his death. That was her goal. He's a bad guy, so we're glad he's gone. That's what she was trying to do. And to your point, Grant, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant, right? Jordan Neely wasn't a bad guy, right? He was in trouble and he might have been violent, but he wasn't a bad guy and shouldn't have died. But Daniel Penny shouldn't have gone to jail either. In either case, regardless of whether Jordan Neely was a bad guy or not, didn't matter. And what happened? Everyone who was on against Daniel Penny made Daniel Penny a racist. He wasn't. They made him one. And they made Neely was the greatest guy. He loved the children. We don't know that. I mean, maybe he did, but we don't actually know that. They just made that. And then the other people, like, he was a crazed guy with a violent past. He should have died. Again, to your point, doesn't matter. Neely shouldn't have died. Daniel shouldn't have gone to jail. George Floyd shouldn't have died. Doesn't matter if he's a good guy or not. And Chauvin's a bad cop. Doesn't matter. That's true. He's got a record to prove it. So anyway, I agree with you. I'm saying people have done it, and it was wrong. They shouldn't have done it. All right, Ryan says both parties suck. True. Thank you for $2. Yes. Accurate statement. Accurate statement. Yes. All righty. Grant got a lot to say tonight. I appreciate it. A lot to say tonight. Black fatigue means something totally different from what these right wingers are trying to say. It's true, but it's a thing. To your point, though, the average American, and that's why Roger brought it up. The average American doesn't know what it meant. So this is the first time they've heard it for the average American. So this is going to stick. I agree. I don't like this phrase at all. I hate it. I understand it completely. I get it. I wish they would have called it something else. Ghetto fatigue would have been better. I mean, still not great, but would have been better than black fatigue. I do not like the black fatigue thing at all. I don't like it at all. But yeah. He goes on to say they need to come up with their own saying. They're trying to misuse the way they did woke. True. Accurate statement. And they grab woke. Yes. Peace, thank you for the $1. The previous rant should check out Winter's Bone, a really good movie about hillbillies and meth. Yikes. Good movie. Well, there we go. There we go. All righty. Thank you for that piece. I appreciate it. All righty. A couple more if I could grab. All righty. You guys going back and forth on yourself. I do appreciate that. Yes. Razor says, too many blacks move to white neighborhoods to have black fatigue. Too many blacks move to white neighborhoods to have black fatigue. I'm not sure where you go. Are you saying that because too many, that you're saying there are too many black people who live in white neighborhoods to have black fatigue? I mean, that's literally the opposite, Razor. Right? If you're a black family and you move out of the black neighborhood into a white neighborhood, the odds are pretty high you have black fatigue, which is why you move to a white neighborhood. I think it's the opposite. I think you're off on this one, brother. I think you're off on this one. Yeah. Roger says, black people are not that caught up in interpersonal racism. We look at a system as a whole we're fighting against. Also, Nixon started the war on drugs. Reagan multiplied by Biden's bill. Joe mass incarceration. True. It's true. I'm not fighting any of that stuff. I think black people get racist too. I think they do. I see it. You see it. I think they do. I remember many people who would just literally say, whenever something went wrong, their phrase was, I hate white people. They would just say it. They would just say it. You know people who say it. I'm sure you do, Roger. I do. So yeah, that's true. Wade says, if we are always thinking about racism, we'll never stop building the ladder out of the rabbit hole. %100% true. 100% true. Which is why I want to talk about it. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So Roger says, Larry, black people not going back to Dems. On an individual basis, I think you're going to find more women who will do that, Roger, than men. I do. I think more women than men will go back. You'll see it. It depends on who's the next guy who runs. Right now, most people don't like to hear this, but Trump is an anomaly, Roger. Trump's the guy, the Republican that goes to the Bronx. Unless people are going to follow that, and I don't see Republicans following that again. I mean, he's an anomaly. I don't know if the Republican Party is in trouble. And why do I say that? They're in charge now. Good for them. Well done, Republicans. Nicely done. But you're in trouble if you're a Republican, right? And that is, it is a party that is not a working class party that is filled with working class voters. That's a problem. Not just that, it's got massive factions in it. It's got the Maha faction, the neocon faction, the MAGA faction, and then like now the crypto bro faction. So it's got 4 factions that are only being held together because of Trump. His force of will is keeping it together. Once he goes away, they're going to eat each other. When that happens, I think you'll find some black people who will go back home to the Democratic Party. I think some will. I don't want them to. I'm with you. Right? I would say I'll go libertarian, but we'll see how that works. But yes, maybe yes. Jazz says, could it be that many have been conditioned since childhood to believe they're always at a disadvantage, have limited opportunities, the entire system is against them? The teachers tell them this. The teachers tell them this. They're taught this in school. Yes, they're taught this in school. 100%. Yes. So, Jackson and Roger, what system? Okay, that's for you, Roger. It's not for me. There we go. Grant says, is it racist when Jussie Smollett says white Trump supporters threw bleach on him and got away with lying and fueling violence and race war against whites? Nah, no one was paying it. That's not true. He went to jail. What are you talking about? You're off on this one, brother. He went to jail. And he should have. He went to jail. And he should have. Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Let me grab some more of these if I can. All righty. So many of these. I appreciate all these guys going back. You guys going back and forth. Mastermind says Karen fatigue. Yes. Very much true. Yes. Jackson Diddle says 92% of black women and 4% of white women are the main problem. Make excuses for bad behavior. Okay, why 92% of black women and 4% of white women? I don't know where you get those numbers from. Interesting stats. I wonder where you got them from. I don't know where you got them from. I guess. Shags Alone says, what happened to Floyd was of his own doing. Yes and no. And what I mean by that, he did do the bad thing, correct. But it doesn't mean he deserved to die. There's a difference, right? You can still say, I'm sad the guy died because he shouldn't have died. Everything he did wasn't deserving of death. And that's the point. They try to make him a bad guy so you can say he deserved death. He didn't. Even you can say, well, he made a mistake. He did the dumb thing with the money. True. You're not wrong. It's like saying, well, Larry, you crossed the street when it was a red light. Okay, did I deserve to be shot down in the street? No. But maybe I was because there was a gang fight and I walked across the street in the middle of a gang fight and got shot. That's terrible. I did it. Maybe I deserved it. Are you not going to go, well, Larry was a bad guy anyway. He deserved to be shot down. No. I did something stupid. He shouldn't have done that. But doesn't mean he deserved to die. And that's my point. I'm not saying he didn't do things he shouldn't have done. I'm not saying at all. But that doesn't mean he deserved to die. Jordan Neely did something stupid that day. Doesn't mean he deserved to die. But I can still say that. Also doesn't mean that Daniel Penny deserved to go to jail. Sometimes stuff is just terrible and you can acknowledge it all. You don't have to pick a side. And I'm not picking a side. I didn't want George Floyd to die. He didn't deserve to die. Did he make mistakes? Yes. Doesn't mean he deserved to die. That's all I'm saying. It's not crazy to say that. It's normal to say that instead of picking a side and going, well, he must be a bad guy, or, well, he must be a saint. Neither are true. All right. P says, thank you for $1. That's why I hate this racism stuff. It's so primitive. I think all of us here wish we didn't have to deal. True. I agree. My favorite color is blue. So I hate you because you're green. What the F? Why? I agree with you. I wish we didn't. I agree with you, but we do. And someone's going to talk about it without just, look, I'm taking comments as I can. They're coming fast. So I'm trying to grab these if I can. So yes, I am. But I'm trying to grab all of them if I can because I want to have these conversations. So yes. So Ray says MGTOW is the term for feminism fatigue. Ooh, interesting. For those who don't know, MGTOW is men going their own way. It's an offshoot or maybe offshoot. It is a part of the red pill community. Maybe is that right? Offshoot part, something like that, of people who, this is men who no longer want to have a relationship with women at all. And they're called MGTOW men, which is men going their own way. And I'd never thought of it that way. It's a term for feminism fatigue. Yeah, it could be true. I would buy that. But then does that mean if you have feminism fatigue, that you would by default not want to have any woman, right? The MGTOW guys they want no women. I could see somebody saying, I would like a woman, but I don't like feminism or something, right? I could see someone saying that. Maybe. Yeah. I like the concept. I like the concept. Yeah. I do. Grant, you got to say tonight, Obama was a POS and fueled the Muslim, but I don't think that's true. I don't think he's a Muslim. I don't think that's true at all. I know people say that. I don't think it's true at all. I don't. I think it's easy to call him that name because you want to insult him. I don't think it's true. I don't think he was at all. So, Razor got stuff going on too. Dr. King was a Marxist. I don't know if he was a Marxist, but I know he was a socialist for sure. And I want to cover that piece for you guys. A lot of you don't know why that stuff happened. And let me tell you why. And I did for those of you who care, I did a Juneteenth show about 3 or 4 years ago. Let's look at Juneteenth. Go to my Larry Sharpe or Sharpe on YouTube. Put in Juneteenth in the search bar on the page. You'll see it. About an hour and a half long. It's a good show. And I talk about where we all went in the Black community. Originally, the Black community was not socialist at all. Was very libertarian. But the federal government went out of its way to crush, and then the state governments too, went out of the way to crush all Black entrepreneurism, to crush the Black Wall Streets. There were many of them. Physically to burn to the ground. It was government doing it. And there's data. I show receipts, Razor. I'm not just saying it. I show actual receipts. They went out of the way to crush the Black community until the Black community finally just said, what are we going to do? There's only two options at one point in the Black community. Malcolm X or MLK. That was kind of where we had to go. That was it. And MLK was, I can't beat the government. They're literally killing everyone around. I can't beat them. I'll join them. And that's one of the reasons why guys like King became socialists, became Marxists. They couldn't stop the government from crushing them. The average American is actually not racist. I know people laugh when I say it. It's true. Yeah, it's not racist. The average American is not racist. The average American doesn't care. The average American just wants to live their life, do their own thing, do all their own stuff. They don't care about race either way, good or bad. Again, there are racists, they exist, but the average American doesn't care. Whatever. If the guy, giving him the hot dog is a Muslim or Jewish or from Black or white, I don't care. Whatever. Give me my hot dog, here's my dollar. Whatever. They don't care. So it's the government that went out of its way. There were literally laws and federal guidelines written, and I show them, and I physically show you the papers. I show you a picture of the papers of them that show that there's a percentage of Italians, Jews, and Irish that can be in a neighborhood, 30% or less, 0 Blacks. Can't be a neighborhood. Against federal guidelines. Can't do it. So yes, so there was so much of government crushing the Black people for so long, they finally said, all right, fine, we're socialists. That's what actually happened. You may think I'm crazy. That's why there were Black Wall Streets. Black Wall Streets were the opposite. They were total capitalism. Total capitalism. The black market was Black people were full of black market. Totally capitalist. It changed because they got tired of being slaughtered by the government. The Black Panthers were not socialists. They were capitalists. And their leadership was literally murdered by the FBI. I'm not making that up. Do your own homework. Their leadership was murdered by the FBI. Murdered, not arrested, no gunfight, murdered by the FBI. Totally happened. So, yeah, at one point you go, I give up. And that's what happened. So, any case, I hope that was clear. So, Adrian, thank you for coming around. It has been a while. Thank you for being a member. I think this election cycle showed us the DNC sees the Black community as ghetto. True. Pick a woman of color who has hip hop rap people endorse her at rallies. No policy to help the community. And yes. And worse, she's not even Harris is not even an American descendant of slaves. Her mom is Indian. She's raised Indian. And her dad's Jamaican, I think, half Jamaican, something like that. They don't have American descendants of slaves. She and Trump got in trouble for saying, oh, she's black now. Yeah, she was. All of a sudden black. It's true. Yes. Absolutely true. So, Shags Alone said, Malcolm X warned you, beware the fox. True. True. Yes. Ron Helton over on Rumble says, Larry, did you make those chess pieces on the table behind you? I did not. This shows kind of stuff who I am. It's a book. I've written forwards for several books. This is one of them that I wrote a piece for, Back After Burnout by Dennis Consorti. You can purchase that book if you want to. These are souvenirs that my oldest daughter gave me from overseas when she went overseas. This is about tomorrow, a plushie that my youngest daughter gave me. She likes the Pom Pom Purring Crew. That is my baseball glove and mitt that I used to practice with my daughters, and that I threw out the first pitch when I ran for governor twice, and it was a strike. I showed you guys the videotape of me throwing a strike. Again, have receipts. I can still throw a strike. I'm in my 50s. I still can. And behind that is a desk piece I got. Has my staff sergeant rank from when I was in the Marine Corps. I got that in the Philippines. I got a handmade in the Philippines. And underneath this is this is not, I didn't make them, but it is handmade. It's handmade pieces, chess pieces carved. I got that in Japan and brought it here. So I used to play a lot of chess, and that's there. And then this side, you can still see it. That is a picture of my unit when I was in the Marine Corps. It's my total unit I was in. That is my business is the Neo Sage. That's how I make my money. That is my piece that was gifted to me when I ran for governor in 2018. It's my Larry Sharpe for governor symbol. Those two pieces there is the all-star dad my daughter gave me for being her baseball coach. And that is a figurine of Dr. Doom, who is my favorite villain from the Marvel Universe. And the reason is he is an actual villain who has reasons. He isn't just, I'm a bad guy. He's a reason, as he is trying to save his mother's soul, which is what he's trying to do. He loves his mother, and he will do whatever it takes to save his mother's soul. And that is a German flag and an American flag. That is my mother and my father. My father was a veteran. That's his flag when he passed. My mother was born and raised in Germany, and that is her flag there. So I think I gave you the whole thing. So, and that's a picture of me when I was on a radio show after I was running for governor. I hope I covered it all. I think I did. So Ron, I hope that was good. Ron goes on to say, that's true. The FBI killed them. And I'm still asking after that. Waco. Yep. Ruby Ridge. Yep. Why are they still in existence? Mafia government. True. Yes. All true, Ron. All true. Yes. All righty. Let me walk down a couple more of these. All righty. Orion says, on talk radio, all that I heard about this week was black fatigue and the big, beautiful bill over and over again. Never failed. Yes, black fatigue is popular. Yes, it was everywhere. That's why I picked it for today. That's why I picked it. Peace, thank you for the $5. Want Larry to read your comment on the cheap $1 rant? It's true. Come join our cozy group on Rumble. Yes, that is the correct word. Absolutely. Yes. You can go on Rumble if you want to. Happy to have you on YouTube, wherever's going to work best for you. Yes. So, all right. Let's see if I can keep going on here. Jackson says, America is the least racist country on the planet. If you can't deal with it here, you don't have a chance anywhere else on the planet. The least racist. I would have to qualify that. The least racist in day to day, yes, but our legacy of government racism is bad. Government racism is bad. Yes. I mean, we literally had apartheid here for 100 years in most of their states, and that legacy is still here. So the individual person, I will say that, the individual American, you can tell, because once the South ended segregation, they integrated in 5 seconds. So, in fact, the South is far more integrated than the North is, even though they had apartheid for 100 years. So, people, yes. Systems, I mean, the war on drugs was an insanely racist system. The people themselves weren't racist, but the system itself was. So, yeah, I would say people, yes. Systems, I'm not sure. So, all righty. Thomas says, but getting the masses to point fingers at each other has become increasingly effective with social media. It has been magnified. You are so right, Thomas. It has been magnified like there's no tomorrow. Magnified all day. Yes. All righty. Grant says, point to a time in American history where white people haven't undermined the black community at every turn. I'll go back to it again. I have to make a distinction between government and people. The average white person, Grant, doesn't care. In fact, the average white person didn't even know what redlining was. They didn't know. They had no idea it even existed. The average white person didn't care. Didn't know, didn't care. But the government was run by white people, true. So if you count white elites, yes, to this day, white elites are still heavily racist. So white elites, yes. The average white person just didn't care. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I see how my father reacted, right? I see, and my father had white friends. I have tons of white friends. And when I was a little kid, almost all my friends were black because I lived in the Bronx. When I moved out to Long Island as a teenager, most of my friends were white. And the average kid wasn't really racist. Now, was the system? Of course it was, right? And people talk about systemic racism. Of course it's true. And what I mean by that, here's the issue. The reason why the left wrecks this stupid idea of systemic racism is because the left will say there's systemic racism. See, the people are racist. If the people are racist, then there's no requirement for systemic racism. My argument is the opposite. The average American just doesn't care. They're not anti-racist. They just don't care. But the systems have been. Again, I brought it up. The war on drugs was clearly a racist system, right? The war on poverty was clearly a racist system. And they said it. Like there's evidence of Nixon saying so, of LBJ literally saying so. So these systems were racist, but the people involved were just following the rules. I'm not saying that's okay, but they just were. So I would, if you could change that phrase, not from white people to the white establishment or white elites in government, I would say, yes, you're correct. But the average white person just doesn't care. I'm not trying to defend white people, or the average people in general just don't care. Even if someone is a bit racist, even if someone is, most of them aren't racist enough to react. So even if the Asian person in the ghetto is racist against black people, they're generally not going to react. They're just going to okay, fine, whatever. So that's not going to keep a black person down, if that makes any sense. So that's where, I don't know if you agree with me, Grant, or not, but that's where my head would be. I think that's where I'd have to go. So yes. All righty. Mike says, I never liked Obama. I was covering race for the one, although to bet. What? Never asked me to cover politics again after that election cycle. I'm not surprised. Oh. Okay. Is that OAN you meant? I'm not sure. Phil with the jokes. I had BDU fatigue. Boo. For those of you who don't know, BDU means battle dress uniforms. Utilities, I'm sorry. And the Army calls it that. The Marine Corps does not. The Marine Corps calls it camis. But the Army calls your camouflage uniform BDUs, battle dress utilities. No, it's your camis, dude. Anyway. There we go. All righty. Let me just keep going down here. All righty. I hope that was at least clear what I was saying. Juan is here. How are you, Juan? Is the black fatigue becoming the new woke? If you read about black fatigue on news sites, it means something totally different from what it meant on social media. True. Yes. They've changed the names. They've changed the name. 100%. They've changed the name completely. I completely agree. They just changed the names. That's the issue. Adam says, my grandparents got German reparations for surviving camps. And while it didn't repair the damage it did help us a family move and build better lives in Australia. Yeah, I know. My mom worked for German Bank. And one of the part-time jobs I did was I literally stuffed checks for reparations for Jewish families in New York City and across. Yeah, so I know it. They were paying for a long time. The German government paid reparations for a very long time, until these people died. They were getting checks every month, forever. Yes, a long time, absolutely. So, all righty, if I can go down here. Jackson says Africa was the source of the slave trade. It wasn't possible without them. Yeah, not saying it wrong. Well, that wasn't. Yeah, not saying it wrong. Yes. Mike says reparations just throwing money at issue the left thrives on. If it ever happens, big mistake, relations will get even worse, as will poverty. I'm not sure if that depends on the plan. You could come up with a decent plan. You could. I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's possible. You could do it. But the problem is any plan that would actually work could never actually go under plan because would never be adopted because they would want to make it worse. So any plan that gets adopted will be worse. So you're kind of right, I guess. Yeah. Okay. In theory, you're wrong. It could be done, but in practice, you're right. It won't be done. How about that? There we go. Yes. So, all righty. Let's see. Someone's asking, Larry, since Monday's Memorial Day, are you doing your normal 8 p.m. live stream? Yes, I will still do a live stream on Monday. I still will. Yes, absolutely. All righty. Grant says, Black people never wanted integration. We wanted separate but equal. A separate self-empowered Black community is what they didn't want. That is very generic. I don't know if that's broad brush, Grant. I think there were a lot of Black people, and that's true. And you saw that's what they created all the different Black Wall Streets. But I don't think that's not universal. I think a lot of Black people wanted to integrate. Some Black people actually wanted to be white, right, in their own mind. So yeah, I think you're painting with a very broad brush. But I think many did. That's true. But there were some who wanted to integrate. I think you saw some try to, and that's why they had to make laws. The laws were made in the South because they know that people would have integrated. And there was a chunk of the Black community that absolutely wanted to integrate, and they wanted none of it. So they made it horrible for the Black community. They would not let them integrate, and to your point, would not let them be self-empowered. They crushed them both ways. Either could have worked. Let them integrate or allow them to have their own communities. And the government went, no, you'll have neither. You're correct in that regard. But I think there were many Blacks who wanted to integrate. You see it now. As soon as the laws ended, many Black people integrated. They wanted to. Some still do. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it at all. So yes. All righty. So many of these guys. I appreciate so many of these. I really do. All right. And I'm still behind. And I'm still so far behind on so many of these. It's crazy how many that I'm behind on. So yes. All righty. Let's see. Robert Reed says, but you can't speak about Bill Clinton and his policing policy without understanding that this was the Democrats chasing moderate voters to the right. Clinton was appealing to a conservative ethos. True. Clinton, I would say, was the beginning of the end of the Democratic Party being left, right? Clinton was not a lefty. People say he was. He was not. You're correct, Robert. He was much more of a moderate / right-leaning guy. He's the one who said, this is Bill Clinton, the era of big government is over. That was Clinton, the Democrat, saying that. You're totally correct. That's true. People who on the right who want to insult Bill Clinton will call him kind of lefty or Marxist or whatever. You're right. He was none of that. He was an Arkansas Democrat, which is basically a New York Republican, right? An Arkansas Democrat is basically a New York Republican. So I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Yes. Grant, so yes, I said the Wall Streets. Correct. Between 1919 and 1921, over 300 Black towns were burned to the ground. Yeah, in 1920 that the Triple K marched in D.C.? So yeah, that was one of and that's when Woodrow Wilson decided he was going to re-segregate the federal government. Woodrow Wilson re-segregated it. Yes, that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. Yes. So nothing but bad. All righty. Let me grab some more of this if I can. Grant says, my point is a system wouldn't have worked for as long as it has if the average white person wasn't indifferent or comfortable with it. But that's my point. They were indifferent. The average white person wasn't required to be a white savior, right? The government is what slowed us down. The average person didn't care. I think you're right. They didn't care. They're like, whatever. So I don't know. I see a difference between the people who actually made the laws. They didn't. So yeah, that's my view. Maybe I'm off on this one. I just don't think the average American the average white American was actually racist. They were just whatever. They didn't care. So that's what I think. Maybe I'm off. Look, the people who I've met, I have met people who are obviously and openly racist, and I've met people who just don't care, and people who are kind of moderately, and people who are ignorant. I've met all of those. And the only people I'd be worried about is the people who are actually not. The people I worry about the most are the people who are closeted racist. They're the ones I'm most scared of. Right? But if you just like some open, I said the same thing. If you're going to be like a bad guy, just wear the armband so I can see it. Like, let me see it. Let me know. Okay, that's where you are? Okay, got you. There we go. Yes. Yep. That's what I want to see. Yes. So anyway, Tom says, how is the war on drugs racist? Does being black predispose people to violate drug laws? Yes, it does, Tom. And let me explain why. Because they made laws that literally said, if you have a certain type of drug, which is predominantly in the black community, pushed by the government into those communities, you would do more time. Yes. Then Bill Clinton and Joe Biden and his ilk literally, not figuratively, put 100,000 cops into black communities, meaning that you would be more predisposed to violate drug laws because you will have 100,000 more interactions with the cops than people who are not black. So by default, you would, right? Now, the issue is, do black people smoke weed or sell weed any more or less than white people? No, they don't. But they're going to get caught because there's 100,000 more cops in their communities than in white communities. So now you might go, well, the cops are racist. They're not racist. They're in the black communities. They're going to arrest whoever they find has these things. Well, they're in black communities. This goes back to my point of the government making the rules. Did the average white person go, I can't wait to have the cops beat up a black guy? No, the average white person just doesn't care. They live their life. Well, when the elites put them in there, yes. So to answer your question, yes. When the system does that, yes, that's true. That's how that works. So yes. Anyway, hope that makes sense at least. So, all righty. Jay says, I think he means redlining was bad because black people had to live next to the black people instead of getting to live next to whites. I don't think that matters. All I'm saying is they didn't have a choice, right? And you should have had a choice. That's the issue. You should have had a choice. If you want to live in black families, okay. You don't? Okay. Razor says the average white person was so uninformed, though, pre-internet and pre-cable. Also true. Also true. I think I would agree with both of those. I do. I think both of those are true. Yes. All righty. Shelly says, a friend of mine felt bad because his friends were all being drafted to Vietnam, so he enlisted. He ended up lifeguarding at a nude beach in France. Man, good deal for him. Good deal for him. Yes. Roger says, Tom Forsyth, John Elric Nixon's right-hand man, said Nixon started the war on drugs to get his political enemies, white liberals, hippies, and black people. Yes, it was literally mentioned for that. And I saw like 2 times, for some reason, Nixon didn't like Puerto Ricans either. That was a thing of his. I don't know why. But yeah, he didn't like black people and liberal hippies. Yes. So to answer that question, how was the war on drugs racist? Right there. They actually said it, Tom. They said it. Yes. And they then did those things. That's what makes it racist. So I hope that's clear. And that's my point. That is the idea of a systemic racism that doesn't matter whether the individuals in it are racist or not. And that's why standard liberals are wrong on this. They say it's systemic racism and everyone's racist. It's one or the other. Either the system's not racist and the people are racist, that's option 1, or option 2, the people are or are not racist, but the system's racist. And I say the system, and maybe saying a system's racist is wrong. Let me be clearer. The system creates racist outcomes. If you don't think a system can be racist, then what I would say is the system that the elites built creates racist outcomes. How about that? Maybe that's a fairer way of saying it. I'm not sure if that's true. So yes. Tom says people don't think right is a race. Correct, but systems do. Correct, but systems do. But people, yeah, you're right. Systems do though. So yes. All righty. If I grab some of these here. Ron says, didn't Wilson also have the movie The Birth of a Nation play at the White House? Yes, he did. 1915. Yes, he did. That is true. Yes. Yeah. Wilson was clearly one of our worst presidents. I mean, yeah, clearly. Mastermind goes on to say he also gave us the income tax and Federal Reserve. Yes. Like bad. Yes. Roger said, the closeted racist is exactly why we're not going back to the Democratic Party. I like that. I like how you're thinking. I do. I like how you're thinking. Yes. All righty. Let me see if I can grab some more. You guys are going back and forth a lot. I'm glad this is a good back and forth piece, guys. I really enjoy this. Yes. All right. I went through that. Okay, okay, great. There we go. I went through a bunch. I appreciate that. Guys, I'm going to ask you one time. I know I asked you once before. Please, guys, click the button known as like. Click the like button. It does matter. You're watching it. You like it. You're going back and forth. This stuff matters. Please enjoy it. Please click the like button. It really does matter. Also, if you haven't shared this or reposted it, please do so. Share it, repost it, whatever the case may be. Let other people see it. If you haven't followed me already on Facebook, on X, and on Rumble, please follow me. It really does matter if you can follow me. If you have not subscribed to me yet on Sharpe or YouTube, please do so. Make sure you select that all notifications. If you think you've already subscribed, resubscribe if you could. It does matter because YouTube will just throw you off and decide you're a bot. Membership does matter. If you're a member, please do so. Click that 499 join button. It does help me. The more I do that, the less I have to work, the more I can do this. And that is a very important piece. If it can be done, it's very important. Also, remember that if you are a member, you get to submit reaction videos that I'll react to. Not too shabby. Also, I'll be doing another members show, meaning that members will be physically on the show with me. Everyone can watch, but you can actually be on the show with me if you want to. In a couple of weeks, I'll let you know when that's going to happen. Members get an opportunity to come on. Hope to see some of you there. And never forget, Mr. Rhythm, the algo, Rhythm loves afterwards. If you would comment, please comment after this is over. Once this is over, please comment on this after it's over. And then please, if you would, let me know what you think about race relations in America now. Is this some kind of psyop? Is it getting, it's obviously, it's better than it was, but is it some kind of psyop? Is this on purpose? Are they trying to divide and conquer us? Is just culture moving? Is just a cultural issue? Is it culture and not race? What do you think? Let me know. Not just that though. If you're watching this and it's later on, it's like tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it's not the live, you're going to see 2 videos pop up right here. Please watch one of them for at least 8 minutes. YouTube likes that. I will see you all very soon.